night breathes fire. Your eyes so bright. The dark will guide us through the night. Bye, bye, my love. I'll shine for you in the dark. The sky is lonely without the sun. It cried for years, an ocean of tears. It's how it's begun. Bye, bye, my love. I'll shine for you in the dark with my tribe of stars. My tribe of stars. My tribe of stars. And I breathe fire. Your eyes so bright. The dark will guide us through the night. Bye bye, my love. I'll shine for you in the dark with my tribe of stars. My tribe of stars. My tribe of stars. My tribe of stars. My tribe of stars.
go. Make your body rock. Body rock.
breathes fire. Your eyes so bright. The dark will guide us through the night. Bye, bye, my love. I'll shine for you in the dark. The sky is lonely without the sun. It cried for years, an ocean of tears. It's how it's begun. Bye, bye, my love. I'll shine for you in the dark with my tribe of stars. My tribe of stars. My tribe of stars. And I breathe fire. Your eyes so bright. The dark will guide us through the night. Bye bye, my love. I'll shine for you in the dark with my tribe of stars. 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 Frozen over, stuck in time, out of breath in my mind. Is this how it will be when you promise this, you and me? Could it be us? Could it be us till forever? Till forever, forever us? Could it be us? Could it be us till forever? Till forever. I breathe fire. Your eyes so bright, the dark will guide us through the night. Bye, bye, my love, I'll shine for you in the dark. The sky is lonely without the sun. It cried for years, an ocean of tears. It's how it's begun. Bye, bye, my love, I'll shine for you in the dark with my tribe of stars. My tribe of stars. My tribe of stars. And I breathe fire. Your eyes so bright, the dark will guide us through the night.
Welcome everybody to the WREC. It is Grand Finals Day, and that means yesterday we saw a best of 5 between Gamelord and Viv, and it went all 5 games. Viv were the underdogs coming into this series, but an amazingly good game 1 for Tyras and the rest of the crew, utilizing this very early game split the pack composition that isolated targets from Gamelord and smashed through them. Gamelord would need to steady themselves in a game 3, using Lonely Kid's Camille, getting Diana for Ryuh, and really starting to hold the brakes just a little bit and allow them to come back in the series against Viv. We went on to game 4 because it was still match point, and really Gamelord was still having to prove themselves in this series. Viv trying what they could, but between the Z from Ryuh on Gamelord's side of things, they finally were able to get some momentum, put a second win on the board, and take us all the way to a game 5. And this series bounced back partly because of Lonely Kid, partly because of Hester, but Lonely Kid's Darius really came up clutch in this game. It bought the time for Redemption's Vein to scale into the late game and put Gamelord into a rematch position against WREC for the Grand Finals.
Welcome to the official Riot Games Fabric EMEA Championship.
Everybody round here know we get hype. Everybody round, everybody round, everybody round, everybody round.
Put out more damage down in these team fights, but Zeph is quite tanky in the front line. You can see all this shielding coming through, and Joey this time gets charmed up and gets taken down, and that's exactly why Hester has been picking this Rakan and has looked insanely good on it. Now this Yuumi is not enough to keep everything alive.
I think we can take down WREC, obviously. We are not playing to our top level. We are actually in a slope right now, and we are doing the best we can to come back from that slope, but
Probably end the game as that's the hook onto Kamau. Kamau is going to fall. Absolute Zero gets blocked, and I was hoping to see a little bit more from Formulation, but WREC have absolutely destroyed them as random on that signature. Darius is going to go for the triple onto the killing spree. Yes, he said.
You know, I feel like when it comes to this, there's two types of people. There's people who predict RICs and they're consistently correct, and there's Stress who consistently predicts against us and is always wrong. So I think if you want to be not like Stress, you should probably predict RICs for next week, and yeah, I think we'll be able to take the series against Gamelord.
Is going to get Mullet the kill. Now they're trying to chase down onto Franders. Kranix hasn't really felt his impact in this fight yet, but there's a double kill for the set. Gonna chase through as our nation forced to stasis. Absolute zero.
We knew we could win, so we never gave up, and we just played our game. We knew what to buy, we knew what to play, and I think we did it pretty well.
It's going to be a long time before that Herald actually gets to the tower. Acolyte in the front line for the time being. That's a really huge bullet time. That's a awful play for Team Queso right now. They managed to trade 1-for-1 for the time being, but they don't actually get the reset onto Acolyte. Oh, they played that. I don't know, man.
In my opinion, BLB, like, they're pretty strong. Like, you can call them like dark horse, you know, for European team. Like, they have pretty solid team comps. They have pretty solid players. And I think it's gonna be like pretty good match.
Welcome everybody to the WREC Grand Finals day. It is Sunday. It's a perfect day for a best of 5. I'm Stress, joined by Excandrel and Stuart to begin this best of 5 up. Welcome back, Stuart. I know you had some internet problems yesterday, so you're here joining us at the beginning of the show. I want to give you just a moment to put your thoughts together for Viv versus Gamelord from yesterday.
Yeah, unfortunately, I was watching in the back lines yesterday for Gamelord versus Viv, but what a best of 5 we saw. I knew it was going to be a close series, and Viv nearly got there. They were so close, but Gamelord were able to come back. But to be honest, El Clasico for a grand final, RICS versus Gamelord, I can't think of a better match to end the WREC.
Yeah, exactly. Hopefully your internet stays through. Touch wood, it'll be okay for today's series. But as we look through a now nearly completed bracket, I mean, we've seen a little bit about how the teams made their way through for the top 4 teams, but now, of course, in the lower bracket, we saw Gamelord 3-2 their way past Viv, and that puts us in rematch position, RICS versus Gamelord. I mean, we saw it on Friday, Excandrel. Like, is there a bigger matchup right now that we could be looking at other than these two teams?
I think this is classically over the last few years of Wild Rift Esports in Europe has been the matchup. Like the players on both sides have got long existing rivalries between the both squads, and I think realistically this is the best matchup that we could have hoped for in the WREC finals. It's going to be really close, I think, especially because we saw Gamelord on a bit of an upswing yesterday, and that is a good place for them to be mentally, a good place for them to be performance-wise, coming into RICS, who have clearly been the most dominant team from the get-go.
Yeah, I totally agree. I love, by the way, mentioning years of Wild Rift. I'm like, okay, Excandrel's gone forward in time. He's a time traveler. Gamelord RICS is still going to be a prevalent thing in the future. But with 2 teams in the grand finals, let's take a look at how Gamelord and RICS have made their way to today.
Yeah, I think we honestly have even more to grow, and as metas change, I think we'll be one of the teams that are really good at, finding new picks and sticking to new things. But yeah, I definitely don't feel like we've reached our peak at all.
We feel very good, obviously. We are doing the best we can to come back from that slump, but I think we can take down RICS, obviously.
That's a little taste of how our teams got here today. I don't think it tells quite the full story of RICS bouncing back on Friday and then Gamelord bouncing back yesterday. Puts us in a really tough position to predict. When we look at our predictions, I think the three of us are on the same page, if I'm not mistaken, from what I saw earlier. I at least have said REC are going to go for it. Xcandral, are you on the same page as me?
I think the entire crew's on the same page as you, mate. You know, just based on what we've seen in this competition, I think it's the sensible prediction. I think one could argue that there is a momentum factor that plays into Gamelord's ascent right now. And I think whenever you go against these two teams, you are expecting it to go to the wire. I think despite a unanimous vote for REC here, it really is as close to 50-50 maybe as you could think between two teams.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. Stuart, you made yourself enemy of REC the other day by predicting Gamelord, and it backfired on you. I have joined the REC hype train. So do you want to explain your turnabout again? Because you're spinning more than Garen does in the meta right now on these REC predictions.
I mean, I went against REC last time and it didn't really work out. So I'm on the REC hype train now. I believe that they're going to pull it through. But as Xcandral said, it's going to be a really, really close series. I feel like Gamelord can still have that little bit of an edge as well.
So what you're telling me is you've cursed them and now we're all going to be wrong because, I mean...
True.
That's what's going to happen. I have that feeling. Gamelord, we saw them kind of get the download a little bit yesterday in series, playing around Ziggs. Of course, Ziggs has been one of these big picks of the community. Eduardo always loves his memes, always building it around something important. We saw them get the download on the meta and kind of read out Viv yesterday. We'll see where they come into day one against REC today. Speaking of Viv, Stuart, I'm going to let you head off because we're going to speak to one of the members of Viv in just a couple of minutes' time and get their take on yesterday's series. While Xcandral and I delve a little deeper into the headlines. I think the biggest, most obvious one is that it's finals day today. It's a best of 5 again, and I think it's really worth us resetting like the difference between best of 5s, and especially at finals best of 5. There's a lot of pressure on these teams.
Yeah, and I think specifically as well, this is, as we've alluded to, kind of the match of titans in Europe. You know, these are the two best teams, the people that predicted would be the two best teams coming into the tournament. It's very rare that you see community predictions kind of come to fruition and kind of like the expectations before a tournament play out to the absolute nth degree. But the finals that we've got here is essentially the two best teams in the entire region. They were expected to be the two best teams in the entire region, and they've kind of lived up to that heading into this best of 5. And I think I want to also reiterate what you mentioned, that it is a best of 5. Plenty can happen. We saw huge draft and priority shifts in the previous best of 5 series yesterday, and that was something that really benefited Gamelord. Let's see how that plays out versus REC, who I think generally are really intelligent when it comes to draft phase as well. So that's what I'm really excited about, just seeing two titans like this go head to head in a best of 5, where the strategy is, you know, from draft all the way through to macro to how you even execute in team fights.
Same, and so much of the draft comes down to, we even saw yesterday, roles being pinched, and for us, we're looking at the AD carry or marksman carry, whatever you want to call it, down in that bottom lane. For me, yesterday we saw a lot of Vayne priority, and she's risen. We heard Kranix talk about it in an interview about how she's good against bruises. For me, that looks like a potential weak spot of REC's, because while Doom does have a lot of champions he can play, I feel like he's tended towards the mages so much more heavily than the majority of the AD champions that we've seen.
Yeah, I think it's difficult to really allude that this would be a Doom problem, but rather maybe more towards the strategy of REC in general. I think that Doom is one of those players, and I've known him for years. He can play Vayne to a good level as well. But I think what we're probably more looking at is that REC have got strategies that they have pre-prepared. They are more comfortable playing certain types of compositions. And I think the question would be is, do they see a priority in Vayne the same way that Gamelord did in their series versus Viv, or is it a case of that actually they think their strategy trumps that and the Vayne priority isn't as much of a big deal for them?
That's a fair point, and certainly about team strategy. I think that's why perhaps one side I think that I've seen a little bit more from Gamelord, like they've opted towards the Seraphine sometimes, and like these different team compositions that other teams haven't. But we did see them kind of get hung up yesterday on the Corki. That really, in game 1 and 2 from yesterday's series, put them trying to play late game, and they just never really got there. So I think it's a really interesting draft that as we get into the first set of games, I think it is really going to start telling the tale and see where things carry over from Friday. But you know, we've talked a lot about Gamelord and REC. There is of course another team that was in this finals weekend, that is Viv. We've got Ryuh, who is a substitute for Viv, standing by with Stuart for an interview.
Thank you very much, Jess. It wouldn't be a finals weekend without an interview with Ryuh. Ryuh, thank you very much for joining us for this interview. First off, I just want to get your general thoughts on this final. REC against Gamelord. I know you as well have been around the Wild Rift scene for such a long time now. What are your thoughts coming into the best of 5?
I think you guys calling this a Classico of Wild Rift is definitely spot on. These guys have been the most consistent players of like Wild Rift's esports history ever since the soft launch and the beta and everything from the beginning. These two teams, like, they've been fantastic, and they've always come out on top. I think we're starting to see a little bit more of the newer players coming into these teams. For example, we got to see Lonely Kid joining Gamelord. So I mean, even though it's the same players, mostly these two teams are just titans, and it's exciting to watch them in the finals, of course.
Yeah, exactly. And for you, what's like the one matchup that you think we should look out for, whether it be mid lane, duo lane? What's the matchup that you look forward to the most?
I think obviously top lane is super interesting. The storyline up there is crazy. You know, you have Random, who from WREC, who was like the most consistent player of all of 2021 probably, and maybe one of the best players in Europe at the time. And he has been, I wouldn't say he's going through a slump, but ever since changing to WREC, he hasn't been their superstar. But then in the last few series, he's been picking it up again and playing well. And we have Gamelord picking up Lonely Kid, who's like one of the most exciting young talents. I think he's the newest guy to come into the scene, who shows absolute massive gameplay. And yesterday he was probably one of the main factors that Gamelord took the series against us. So I mean, I think top lane is interesting. Obviously, jungle and mid will always be fun to watch as well, you know, with Snitch being fantastic in the last series against Gamelord, and Ryuh's not having the best day yesterday. So let's see if Ryuh can match Snitch today. But yeah, I mean, top and mid lane will be the most fun to watch.
For sure. And as a support main yourself, we got to look down in the support role as well. Heste against Clue. What's your thoughts about the matchup? I mean, Heste's had a lot of bans towards him. Clue's been playing a lot of different champions. What do you think about that matchup?
I just think it's heavily one-sided towards WREC. I mean, Gamelord. I think actually Heste has been playing out of his mind lately. And I don't want to say anything bad about Clue. He's a great player, but I think he has to step up today if you want to, you know, be one of the reasons that WREC wins today. I think Heste has been playing great around Zefta, and also I think, you know, we saw Seven with some really interesting moments during the first series between Gamelord and WREC. So I think the jungle support duo for WREC they have to step up if they want to match Zefta and Heste today.
100%. And one last quick thing: what's your predictions going into this? What's your final thoughts?
I want to say Gamelord. I think Gamelord has the highest, you know. I think if Gamelord hits their level, they're a better team, but they just haven't shown it consistently enough. So I'm going to say 3-1 for WREC.
Awesome. Thank you, Ryuh. As always, let's head back to Excalibur and Stress to get us closer to game number 1.
I think I said it the first time we had an interview with Ryuh. I'm like, can we just have a Ryuh interview on every single broadcast? He's so insightful, like very well spoken.
I absolutely think that Ryuh, if he ever hangs his playing gloves up, would make a great broadcaster. I genuinely do. I could see him being an excellent like color commentator or an analyst, you know. So I think, you know, maybe we can convince Ryuh next time round. Don't play. Come and join us on the cast.
we said that too. We actually joked about that off camera. I'm like, I don't want to force him to retire or anything, but you know, Ryuh, there's an open spot in general. Anyway, let's get on to this series. Let's focus in. We've talked a lot about the rosters and the lineups. I think Ryuh went through some of the most key ones, and that means I think the one we haven't talked about too much is jungle matchup. On the one side we have Zefta, on the other side we have SE7 for WREC. I think in the WREC Gamelord series on Friday, SE7 struggled when Lonely Kid and Zefta was shutting him out of the game. Like we had the Camille jumping onto the Kha'Zix, and I think WREC realized that and bought SE7 a lot more room. So I think this as a jungle matchup is not really that like flashy 1v1 doing everything from the jungle. I think it's more of kind of like working together as a team in my mind.
Someone gave me the quote, and I can't quite remember what it was, but they kind of basically said, you know, Zefta's good, but he's no Andre, right? And I think that's like a good kind of, even for SE7, to be honest with you, it's kind of like a good indicator is that, you know, as far as jungle goes, I think a lot of people consider Andre, even though Team K are out, to be one of the best junglers in terms of his own carry potential. Like he can put his team on his back and just run with it. Whereas Zefta and SE7 are great, but they do play more facilitating. Like they've got superstars in their Baron lane, for instance. They've got superstars in their mid lane, and it's more facilitating. They can't have the resources. And I think that's kind of where you saw that Jax composition come undone a little bit, is because although Zefta is great and he's a fantastic jungler, there are too many other like personalities and players on that roster that need the resources to win. And I think that's what SE7 is actually quite good for with WREC. When you've got all of these superstar laners SE7 doesn't often need to take the spotlight, and that is something that I think helps Ryuh. He's much more facilitating, much more playing for the team, and I think Zefta transitioned into that throughout that series yesterday versus Viv and became much more kind of almost like a supplemental role to help his team, achieve success.
For sure, totally. That's the best thing about these is they can come in and one game they can carry, but it doesn't need to be every single game, which it feels like some other teams like Queso have to do. We are very close to our grand finals as I'm checking the clock. We have a couple of things before we get there, and one of them is to check in with Stuart for his key points of the game.
Yeah, I'm going to quickly run through my key points of what I think are going to be the main differences between these two teams. Early game rotations. We saw in the previous series, the best of three between WREC and Gamelord. The Gamelord actually had some early advantages. They were able to rotate around the map a lot quicker, and WREC were kind of on the back foot. So I want to see Gamelord being on the front foot in this series, take that momentum from the previous series against Viv and rotate around the map, because they did that quite well in the first time they played WREC, and they did really well in the early game. My second point is getting Heste on a comfort, which I think is going to be really hard in this series. WREC have already banned out Rakan and Galio every single time that they've played against Gamelord. But I want to see Heste on his other champions. Alistar worked really well for him and his other engaged champions. So because it's a best of 5 series, maybe one of these picks like a Galio and a Rakan will slip through. And I think Gamelord definitely should prioritize that. And the last point is just about Ziggs. Ziggs. Last time we saw these two teams play, Ziggs was either first ban or first pick. So I wouldn't be surprised if that's going to be the exact same coming into this series as well. That's it for my key points. Excoundrel Stress. Let's get into game.
We are ready. I'm so ready. I'm jumping the gun on this one. We're ready to get into it.
All the time yesterday. Don't worry about that, mate.
I'm too excited. It's a best of 5 finals. That's it. Everything about our pre-show is done. We're ready to get into our first draft of the day. And this is a draft that has a lot of weight behind it. Like, Gamelord now have played, how many is it? 8 games up until this point this weekend. WREC have played 3, and 3 of them were against Gamelord. So there's a lot of baggage. I'm actually expecting Ziggs to be banned because it was one of the things that Gamelord struggled with in both series already. So I wouldn't be too surprised to see it not get through in any game this matchup.
I think Ziggs is definitely a huge priority. It's so interesting that it didn't see as much priority in the Viv Gamelord matchup, for instance. But that just shows you kind of like how different teams approach the game. I am so keen to see Doom not on a mage though, because like he's always been a traditional AD carry player. I know he does play a wide variety of champions, having played jungle professionally before he switched over to the AD carry role. But I definitely want to see maybe Doom go towards that redemption arc of, it sounds stupid because I literally was trying to talk about the player redemption and now just said redemption arc, but go towards what redemption is kind of doing, which is transitioning more towards these traditional backline carries. I love the Rakan ban though. It's like, no way, Hester, best champion by miles. There's the Corki ban as well, taking away something that is pretty comfortable for redemption, maybe less comfortable for Ryuh after what we saw yesterday. But regardless, a very good pick all round for this series.
It sets him up for a potential Ziggs first pick. I think the Camille is going to be hotly contested because Lonely Kid looks so incredibly good on Camille, and we know Random can play it as well. I think this is the kind of series where, I come into this and I've said, oh, Doom typically plays mages. This is the time that you bring out something different that maybe the other team have deprioritized. They're like, well, we don't think Doom plays many traditional AD carries. So if something gets through the draft that's traditionally strong, Ziggs first pick. I'm surprised to see Gamelord actually let it through, as Galio and Fiora were the last ban. So a lot of focus from Gamelord on the top 2 of WREC.
Yeah, and actually it was so interesting that we talked about yesterday. There was almost no Fiora priority between Viv and Gamelord, but this time round they know with SE7, they know with Random, no way they want to let them first pick that Fiora up, and that actually she snuck straight back into that ban phase again. So very interesting. It's very, as we said, cool to see how different teams prioritize different picks in the meta right now. Gragas has been, in my eyes, the shining star of drafts across the board for the last couple of weeks, though. That flexibility that he offers you very early on in the draft, you can pivot him to any role. His full AP build path is borderline obnoxious. So I think there's like, the Gragas is clearly proven to be a pretty strong pick for our pro teams. Zefta now has a lot of options open in terms of what they can secure next for the team. Gragas with Orianna is an interesting early rotation. Clearly means that they probably anticipate a bot lane AP matchup in this sense.
Yes, exactly. And I think if you don't pick it up here, you end up in a really rough spot for Gamelord. You need your bot lane, otherwise it's going to get pinched further. Like Corki's already gone, Ziggs is already gone. The only last picks we're looking for that early game would have been Varus. Orianna plays a major role, of course. We haven't seen so much of the Morgana recently. Saw one brand come out, but it didn't really feel like it did as much as you would expect. But there's going to be Clue's Thresh. I think this is one pick that whenever I think about Clue, it seems to get through quite a lot. Clue tends to pick it quite a lot, gives a lot of security over to REC and allows them to give pick potential as well.
And another pick that didn't really get seen yesterday, despite being considered by pros one of the best supports in the meta. So you could just see some priority coming through with the Set dropping in. Now, Set is a good pick in the right hands, has been pretty influential in a lot of our matchups over the last couple of weeks, and still offers a little bit of flexibility. The great thing about Set is that we don't see him in the jungle that much anymore since the nerfs, but very easily flex between both the mid and top lane, depending on the matchup. Now, classically,
is it Darius here?
Yeah, Darius. Yeah, I think you're exactly right. Darius is great into Set in the Baron lane, and also means that you're already seeing like Set plus Thresh is kind of melee, so there's already like a bit of a space for Darius to potentially find really good value in teamfight situations. Plus, synergizes really nicely as like a frontline carry that you can't ignore. And when you've got like these big, beefy, when you've got these like really big, heavy damage dealing backlines, if you have to go for that frontliner before you can get to the Orianna, it provides a lot of distraction in teamfights. And right now, RECs aren't really running it with anything that's going to chunk through a Darius easily, especially if he builds up a bit of resistances in the meantime too. So, you know, Darius probably not going to get killed immediately, which gives a lot of time for Orianna to work in these team fights.
Yeah, that's a fair point that we'll keep a track of. Jax has been banned away from the side of RECs, as Gamelord will also ban out Riven. Zed is gone, of course, with one mage in the middle lane, in the bottom lane, I should say, for Doom. It allows Snitch to go towards the AD route. I wonder whether that's going to be Zefta's Gragas. I mean, obviously it could be Ruiz, but also Hester's having less push onto his champion pool than we typically have seen. Like Galio is gone, Rakan is gone, Alistair is gone. He's played the likes of Leona, he's played a few other champions as well. We've seen Nami come out when they've been playing AD carries a little bit more. So I wonder whether Hester would think about piloting that Gragas as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think with the Garen lock-in, it potentially could be the case. Zefta, obviously someone that we've seen do this incredibly well. I'm very much looking at a lineup right now that is basically bodies in front of the Orianna, like just as many bodies as physically possible. Like there isn't many good ways, I think, for RECs to actually threaten an Orianna right now. And so it's just like, how many big beefy boys that don't really care about don't really care about the Ziggs bomb damage can we? And there we go.
It is.
That's the pivot. That's what I love about this from RECs, because Doom can play this stuff. We talked about it right at the start of the show, Stress. The priority on Vayne. And you raised the question, can Doom do it? He's going to try and show you in the first game.
Do you now pivot to like a Nunu jungle where you're like, okay, well, you're melee range, you're very short range, so what we'll do is we'll just put more range in between us and protect our Vayne? Or do you go heavy aggressive? And aggressive is the way that they're going to go. We do not see Jarvan too much. Weeks 1 and 2, we saw Jarvan where matchups were unbalanced between teams, but of course, Jarvan Cataclysm with the Ziggs puts a lot of enemies low if it all hits, so that Vayne can tidy up very quickly around a fight.
I actually wouldn't have minded the Nunu either here, because you know that you're not going into a really aggressive jungle matchup, or at least you're not expecting a ridiculously aggressive jungle matchup here. Obviously, Lee Sin's still on the table, and you could have like pivoted the Gragas to the bot lane, for instance. But you were guessing that Gragas probably goes jungle in this scenario, so you're probably thinking to yourself, like, I could have gone Nunu because it's okay, but I think Jarvan offers a similar kind of thing. Like, he is a lot of frontline CC. He can peel nicely. The Cataclysm in the right place can really shut down and lock down these beefy melee frontliners. This is a kind of like almost like a gazump from RECs. They were kind of like, okay, you think that we're putting Doom on the Ziggs, but actually now you're going to, I think it's really intelligent. I could talk about the story of this, but basically, we're thinking that Ziggs is going to be the main threat here, so therefore we're going to draft things that can deal effectively with Ziggs, like Garen soaks damage, Gragas soaks damage, Darius soaks damage really easily. However, the switcheroo, Ziggs into mid, you don't usually see, and bang, Vayne rips apart front lines like Darius and Garen easily. And now you're looking at this, the only person that's going to effectively threaten the Vayne in this game from Gamelord is going to be the Gragas. So it's all on Zefta. It's basically all on Zefta here to isolate and lock that Vayne down so that the rest of his team can actually do something, because if they can't, Vayne's going to tear them apart.
Well, this is exactly what we meant by having a draft that has baggage, where like two teams have come into it and we set some expectations. Some of them have been met here as well by the way Rick's drafted. I think Gamelord, it doesn't say that their draft is completely broken by this vein. I think Gamelord still have a lot of tools here to actually punish. So this is going to be a close first game. We'll see whether Gamelord can put the pressure on a little bit early, because Ziggs and Vayne are going to require some time. They're both going to need about that 2 items or so to really start having an impact. Vayne even more so towards that 3rd and further items on. So as we load into game 1 of our grand finals between Ryx and Gamelord, the switcheroo came round, and actually it's Snitch on Vayne. We had another switcheroo. It's into the melee matchup as well of Garen. So Snitch we're gonna go Vayne spotting on this game.
Oh, what is this game? That is definitely not what I was expecting. I think, you were expecting obviously the Garen mid in this scenario when you saw the Garen come through, but I really was just expecting to have the Vayne down bot, then you transition Vayne into the mid lane afterwards. But it looks like Snitch has basically said, I know that at some point I'm going to be playing solo lane Vayne, and I know that I can solo lane Vayne into both Garen and Darius really well. So if we ever transition into that 1-3-1 style of play, that's actually going to benefit Ryx to a greater extent, because Vayne is going to turbo stomp both of those matchups, in the side lane. And that's a big, a move from Snitch to kind of take that role, because Vayne in a side lane can be risky, but we know through the way that the pro games in EU play out, you very rarely get much influence from the jungler in the side lane post 4 minutes. So Snitch probably feels pretty comfortable in this sense. Obviously, Zephyr's coming here to help provide a bit of priority. And one of the great things about Vayne in this matchup is you've got automatic mid lane priority for SC7. You can just go and take whichever scuttler he wants, and you've just got map control already for the Ryx squad.
And really all Snitch has to do is play around any gank attempts from Zephyr. Like, as long as he doesn't get caught and doesn't have his flash burned needlessly, like, this is such a safe early part of the game. And then at 4 minutes, we're going to swap anyway. Like, Ziggs is going to come mid, and as you said, then you go to solo lane. I kind of like that Gamelord are playing around this bottom lane, though, and saying, okay, let's force Doom away from the lane. It doesn't do too much, but there aren't many areas for Gamelord to have an impact on right now. So I guess they're just trying to get a foothold on anything they can to begin this game off.
Yeah, I also really loved that we saw a little trade where Random absolutely bodied Lonely Kid in like a very early little 1-2, and it's led
this
to
dive is going off. SC7 and Random under the turret did not get the haymaker off, and Lonely Kid is gonna pick up the kill. That's a huge blunder. Like, was the cooldown just not there? Random looked like he was ready to use that big shield and just couldn't get it.
Looks like I think he got apprehended. And then at the end of the apprehend, because it kind of interrupts you for a moment, that apprehend essentially resulted in Lonely Kid being able to outplay on the tower. It was a risky dive anyway. It's not like you had taken Lonely Kid down to like negligible HP. You can look at his summoners and know that he has barrier. I think it was a overzealous attempt at looking to make something happen on the top side of the map, because you've seen that your Ziggs got starved out of a lot of resources on the bot side, because Gamelord were responding in kind on the bot side of the map. So it was a little bit like, we need to do something because Doom's lost so many resources, but it just felt a bit overforced. And a Jarvan set, especially pre-5, like, you're not looking at the most ridiculous amount of kill pressure in the world right there, especially on a half HP Darius with barrier.
Yeah, it just felt a little overzealous, as you said. So, I mean, it puts Lonely Kid in a great position. We saw yesterday his Darius have big impact in the last game, where Gamelord finally had that momentum. They were turning it back around. We haven't really spoken too much about Hester in this game. I mean, the Nami doesn't offer him the same amount of potential to get fights started in the early game that some of the other tanks that he plays. But Hester's played enough Nami games. We've seen his tidal waves be really impactful, very good in the fights as well. So even though it's not typically a pick we associate him with, I still think it's one that he has confidence with. There's a suplex back into the tower, perfectly positioned. And here comes Clue. Flay lands. Lonely Kid, no flash. No hope of getting out of that one. It's Clue that gets the kill credit, but it's a 1-to-1 score on this game.
Oh, that was nice from Random. I mean, I think Lonely Kid had a very, very false sense of security in that sense, because he was like, I'm just bodying him now after that tower dive. There's no way that he's going to take a fight with me. And Random suplexes right back into tower range. And obviously we saw Clue just hanging out on the sidelines with no flash available from that previous tower dive. Lovely little play there. It's going to allow them to go towards that top side of the map and get at least a plate maybe off that push. think they didn't quite convert it into the Rift Herald, which is what they were hoping for, because Zefter had basically said, we'll contest this where we can, and forced them away, thinking they didn't quite have the resources necessary to kind of cleanly take that Rift Herald. They didn't want to risk anything.
Gamelord thought about taking the dragon. Ryuh started to commit down towards it for a fight. I don't know about this fight from Ryuh. I feel like they need a little more time before they can actually fight. Same being said for Gamelord, they don't exactly have the best early game comp, but I think when you have a Darius, it always has the ability to go off. Cataclysm used in the middle lane, Darius forced to flash. They're putting a lot of pressure on to Lonely Kid. Condemn, I believe, actually locked Redemption in place, and that's damage coming down from Doom from a distance. Still has that ultimate. So does Snitch, and Ryuh want this. There's the big Mega Inferno Bomb. Is going to hit. As Set suplexes in. They've got low health bars. If they can get some kills now for Ryuh onto Snitch or onto Doom, it would give them the advantage they need. Snitch doesn't quite get the kill off the Condemn, but it will open up the dragon for Ryuh. They take an early game fight, 1 kill plus the dragon.
I think a lot of resources were burnt in just kind of getting Redemption into a better spot after that Condemn. The killer instinct from Snitch comes straight through, and that meant Redemption was a little bit forced out of the fight. I think item spikes were in favor of Ryuh as well. The Blade of the Ruined King is such a nice little boon. Yeah, watch this. This is off the back of Redemption being forced away. Doom completely untouched, had all of his abilities left over, and I think that the Mega Inferno Bomb really sealed the deal. It was a big suplex, a big haymaker, combined with a 5-man Mega Inferno Bomb. Gamelord just soaked too much damage at that point. And I think that was the main problem for them there. They just, essentially, they ate every ability that they could. And obviously, even though there is the scaling for Ryuh, and, you know, the more items needed to get them into a good spot, if you soak that much damage, it's a bad thing.
Lonely Kid has no flash, but he's the one on the aggression here as Zefter is around. They know they've got Ruiz coming up as well. Ultimate's nearly available for Ryuh. Redemption has his, although is it going to be in a position to get that shockwave to work? Still 4,000 health on Rift Herald with the eye opening that will drop pretty quickly, but I think Ryuh, they want the fight. This Cataclysm goes in from SC7. Mega Inferno Bomb hits 5 again. The same thing is happening, and if it's all about Ryuh closing in for these kills, one goes to Clue, although there's the execute going down onto Random. That's a trade with Ruiz picking up 1 as well, but it's Rift Herald going over to Ryuh, losing 1, picking up 3 kills for themselves. Ryuh getting further and further ahead on the objective game.
Yeah, it's just, again, you mentioned it in the fight, another big ultimate from Doom. The damage that he's getting off in these fights is nutty right now. SE7 decides to go for it. He forces them all into the choke point. That aggression pushes them back into that tribe rush, and then obviously Doom makes the play. Now, Ryuh's Snitch was sat on a ward there, and unfortunately didn't quite manage to go for the 1v1 kill that he was hoping for. But, you know, nonetheless, brilliant play from Ryuh once more. SE7 maybe overstepping ever so slightly here versus Lonely Kid. Will pop that stone plate.
Oh, is he actually going to get away? He's bleeding. No chance of getting away. Couldn't flag and drag his way out of that one. So another kill goes over to Lonely Kid, but not the biggest impact right now. No objectives up. This was the last fight around Rift Herald.
Yeah, so SE7 again, like you mentioned, hit the eye, jump straight into the Cataclysm, and watch everybody group up and take a massive amount of damage from that brilliant Mega Inferno Bomb. Once again, you know, just random buying time on the set, and the shockwave was non-existent. I think it's one of the problems when you see the Ziggs versus Orianna debate. You know, you don't have to be as precise with the Ziggs. And that sounds really bad to say. It looks like Ruiz actually died, I think, the Snitch. You don't have to be as precise with Ziggs, because you can essentially just, wait a second, another Mega Inferno Bomb.
Marks the spot, though. It's exactly what Doom needed from this. And Gamelord are being routed here. There's a tidal wave to disengage. It's going to create a little bit of space as SE7 is here. Clue is thundering his way down into this. If he can get some crowd control to land, they can tidy up these, as 1 has already gone over to Snitch. Clue has enough health at least to continue this fight. In goes Random, going to knock 1 down. Lonely Kid doesn't get the ultimate off. Haymaker's going to drop Zefter low, and SE7 is looking for more from this fight. It's again all going Ryuh's favor. They lose Clue, they pick up 2, and now they're going to look towards this turret in the bottom lane.
And they're not.
No, they look like it for a moment, and then they go back away.
But the Orianna's wave clear is still pretty sizable enough to deal with a little wave heading that way.
Something else Dragon's coming up.
Dragon is coming up, yeah. I think something else that's worth mentioning about the Java pick is that it almost is like a small, like, Lulu steroid for the Vayne as well. Remember, the standard gives a bit of attack speed when you place it, and so it's a nice little boon for Vayne in the moments that count. And I think it's something that's maybe a little understated about what Jarvan can provide, because that attack speed in the late game, it's no mean thing. It really can have a big impact in the right moments. And so I think that's another nice reason. That's a big engage.
Yeah, another Mega Inferno Bomb. These are just landing 2 too clean as another kill goes over. This one goes over to Snitch, and that's a killing spree for the Vayne. And with Doom doing so much damage and SC7 and setting up these fights, I don't see a way for Gamelord to really start breaking these fights open in their favor.
No, I think at this point, RICS have got a firm control of the game. That Vayne pick really tears apart both Lonely Kid and Ryuh's and teamfight situations. And then that's the juice that we talked about. You know, we mentioned, oh, I'm a little worried. Is Ziggs going to be able to push through the Garen? Is Ziggs going to be able to push through the Darius?
Yeah, that's the execute going through. As it's pretty simple in the 2v1. But bot lane, the turret does finally go down.
It's a turret for turret, and of course, Random maybe just thought that he was alone with the Darius, but unfortunately not. Lonely could have the support. But, you know, we talked about it in the draft. We were like, is Ziggs going to be able to get through the Darius? Is Ziggs going to be able to get through the Garen? This is why this has been drafted, because they can just soak bombs, and it's not going to mean too much in the grand scheme of things. But then that Vayne pick comes through, and that was kind of like almost like the skeleton key that unlocked this Gamelord composition. They just get through both the Darius and the Garen with relative ease as the game progresses, and it's going to crack open the oyster to reveal the Orianna Pearl. And that's exactly what the RICS team are looking for when they come to these teamfight situations. I will say, though, it's not really been Vayne that's been the star of the show. Really, Doom's Mega Inferno bombs have been doing work.
And
so, you know,
we highlighted that coming into it. Like, it's the most telegraphed pick that RICS are going to have. Like, if it's available, they will first pick it. No questions asked for Doom, because it's one of his picks. There's a Condemn lands onto Hester. Hester's going to drop low. They set up the kill this time for the Mega Inferno bomb, and it's all too easy for RICS. The explosive cask, if anything, just makes sure Ryuh actually gets picked off. It's a rampage for Snitch. This Vayne is tidying up the fights, and it's everything that RICS needs on top of the damage coming from Doom.
Yeah, and I think Gamelord as well, just not quite on the right page. 3 members alone in the red side jungle of RICS. You're not exactly ahead. It's a very aggressive position to be. You don't exactly have a huge amount of vision control on the sort of the river entrance in the mid lane. I'm just questioning what was going on. Like, I understand that maybe they were pushing the bot lane in. They were trying to get a bit of map pressure and get some deep vision in around the red buff. Maybe looking to set up a pick or something along those lines. But they just got caught out. And I think, you know, RICS very quickly to jump on that. I've got to give massive props to Clue as well. You know, Ryuh said and raised the question, we need to see Clue really step up as that support player if he wants to kind of combat Hester and be on the same level. I really do think some of the engages that Clue have brought to this game has been next level from him. Some of these proto belt flay engages, those picks that need to happen when they're happening, Clue is facilitating a lot of these catches as well, and it's really nice to see.
Yeah, totally agree. In this game, like, Clue has shown up exactly how they need it. Now, there's a window of opportunity here as Vayne has showed topside for Snitch, and they kind of, I guess, will know that there's no teleport available, so there is a 5-man versus 4 on this bottom side if Gamelord can get a fight started, but that's quite a big ask with the composition they have. Actually, RICS are going to engage into this. I don't know how I feel about this. Mega Inferno bomb comes through, and that's going to be random dropping. A little bit of an overstep. Knowing that Vayne was showing top is an uncharacteristic mistake from RICS right now.
Yeah, nothing to lose from it just yet, though. You've got the wave clear necessary from the Ziggs to stop that mid lane tier 1 being threatened. Obviously, we do have the Baron spawning soon, but I don't anticipate that Gamelord versus Ziggs are just going to try and rush that down, especially in the state that they're in right now. But they're trying to maybe make something of this mid lane. Zefta didn't quite get as much done, although we haven't engaged him.
Cataclysm, it's 3 members of RICS. They're trying to buy time for Snitch, but they've gone in again. Like, Snitch is down in the bottom lane clearing waves, which is an important job to do at this stage of the game. And SC7 goes in. They're not on the same page in this last 2 minutes of the game after a beautiful start.
I mean, SC7 failed his exit, and I think that's what really messed up that engage. I think SC7 was looking to Cataclysm and then flag and drag back towards his team, but he didn't. And I think that was the problem. He messed up the actual flag and drag combo and got stuck in his own Cataclysm, which, as you can see, was essentially his death sentence at that point. We have the Infernal spawning. SC7 won't be on the map. Whether he's got the teleport doesn't look like it. I think they're going to give up the Infernal, and it's a little avenue back into the game potentially here for RICS, as that's going to get focused down. For Gamelord rather, as they're going to focus that down pretty quickly. Although I say that RICS want to have a
RICS
party.
are grouping 4 people hit, but most of it's absorbed by a shield as the engage comes through. SC7's not quite there, but the damage coming down already from Rix ahead of time. Stasis is going to buy Zefta another couple of seconds as he flashes out over the wall, and Random drops once again in these fights. But has he bought the time? Caught him as Lonely Kid and the rest of Gamelord are trying to cut through the front line. There's a tidal wave. It's going to get Stasis through as well as Doom manages to flash over the wall. The Vayne is dead. Snitch is out of the fight, and Gamelord may very well have steadied the ship for here. Lonely Kid is going to get caught by the bouncing bomb, and Redemption tries to get through with the ball, but the Rift Herald summoned in the middle lane to try and create a bit of pressure to force Gamelord away from the Baron at this point of the game. That's where they'd be looking. 4 members strong right now, and 3 members of Rick's dead.
I think with the jungler up and the fact that Doom on the Ziggs is still available, it's a very risky attempt to go for the Baron at this stage of the game. I think they're hoping that they'll get enough pressure to maybe take down this mid lane 2-1, but the Mega Inferno bomb's there.
Yeah, it is, as SC7 gets pulled back for a moment and will get stasis. Aqua Prism lands, and it's all falling apart for Rix. Gamelord, for this early game, looked like Rix had their number, and suddenly Gamelord have come back. I would love to see the items, because I feel like there's a locket has been purchased here. We'll check it out after this, because there's that shield.
Yeah, I think the locket is potentially the correct call. I think it's really good, because it meant that the Mega Inferno Bomb had limited impact. Got to give a massive call out for Zefta's stasis here, bought enough time to get him back into his own team, and of course, Random stuck in no man's land. They were essentially barred off by the terrain at that point to support him. Great stasis from Doom, but of course it was the amazing explosive cask from Zefta. He was the MVP of this fight with both the stasis and the isolating cask, which is what we talked about in the draft phase. He has to do that to Snitch. He has to do that to the Vayne so that these team fights are palatable for Gamelord, and he did manage to do it this time round as well. Great bubble from Hest to set it up, and great killer instinct from Zefta to follow up and find that isolating play.
And Hester does have a lock at it, so using that as well as possible to kind of like absorb that Ziggs impact. That's basically going to be the trade every single time in these fights now. Is they actually just use the Ziggs ultimate to check the vision on Baron. That's an indicator that Rick's definitely aware of the changing tide of this game. The Gamelord, these last few fights have gone in their favor, closed the gold gap. The one thing Rick's have though, they have themselves 3 Drakes. An Elder win condition is really on the board right now, and with a Vayne, she'll eat through that dragon if they ever give them a moment there. So I think that's something Gamelord have to be wary of in case Rix can rush that down once the Elder spawns.
Yeah, I think, as you mentioned, there's something that a lot of teams have fallen prey to. Sometimes you kind of underestimate how powerful dragons can be, and sometimes because Elder often pops over to a team with like 1 dragon or no dragons, the value of Elder and the impact of Elder often gets feels a little underwhelming. But with a 3 dragon Elder on the cards, that is devastating in teamfight situations for Rix. If they didn't have, the tools already to deal with Gamelord, you add a true damage Elder to the situation, the Ziggs will actually start killing off the Garens and the Dariuses of this world with relative ease. So it's something to be concerned about. We have a potential engage, or at least a threat from Gamelord here around this lane. They're just essentially trying to ensure they have complete control of this Baron area. Random is the target. They're actually cutting him off here.
Yeah, he's pushing with the wave still as Clue. It looks like he flashed forward to try and get an engage to work. We're already into the fight. As Clue forced back away, he's going to drop to begin this one off, or is he? He's tiny amounts of health left as there is the engage on the top side. Snitch behind the wall, behind the ledge, will tumble forward. He's got a Guardian Angel. He feels like he's got it going, but he gets Aqua Prismed in place, dropped into the Guardian Angel, and he needs some coverage now as Snitch manages to tumble back out of this fight. It's Doom on the left side is going to get popped, as is Zefta. Zefta is the one actually to get the crowd control out of Doom. Aqua Prism comes through. Gamelord have done it. Surely that's a double kill for Lonely Kid. It's only SC7 and Doom that are still on the board for Rix, as they only lost Hester for Gamelord. Gamelord have turned this game back around.
That was a very, very desperate engage coming out from Rix there. They saw that Random was being cut off on the top side of the map. They knew they had to do something, or Random was just dead in that scenario. They thought that they could get onto the Orianna, but again, the locket, it's a big brain pickup from Hester here, because it's having a huge impact in these team fights. Random looks for the flank, and I appreciate the attempt, but Snitch was just not in position to actually start base attacking anyone. Again, Zefta and Hester with the killer instinct here. Doom getting caught out.
They found Lonely Kid as Ziggs is dead, though. Doom is out of this fight. That's a double kill going over to Redemption as Dragon is there. Is Snitch able to teleport in? Does he have the goal to pick it up? I mean, can he even do anything? Is there any point in doing it? That Dragon has gone. Nobody is there to secure it with him, and that means Elder taken by Gamelord. Rix, they had 3 dragons. Elder now no longer an option. option, and it's Baron that's on the cards. Look, Hester's coming from base. There's only 2 members of RICS. This turnaround in this game has been incredible from Gamelord.
And I think RICS have just dropped the ball, but I've got to give massive props to Zefter. Every single time, we talked about it in draft, it's up to the Gragas to get the Vayne in an awkward spot, and 2 team fights in a row at the most pivotal moments of the game. It has been Zefter that has essentially locked Snitch up with Hester as well, with those bubbles being excellently placed. But it's Zefter that's got that killer instinct to act and find Snitch and isolate him and make him an easy target for the rest of the team. Once he has CC'd that Vayne up, Lonely Kid is in there, Ruiz is in there, and they're just bopping him down. Gamelord, RICS need to think about playing a traditional front to back here. That team fight was awful for them because essentially they split their carries. They weren't providing the frontline protection that they needed. Random was in the wrong place at the wrong time again. He's not had an excellent game, I feel, on this set. And I think RICS just need to kind of slow the pace down, go back to what's working. Snitch is maybe looking for Ruiz, but the Baron minions are too threatening at this point in time. Lonely Kid.
Oh, Random is going to get caught and gets executed. That's the big member of RICS' frontline down. And RICS, I don't know how they're going to weather through this fight. There's the Ziggs ultimate to try and cut the wave, but the tower has already gone. The inhibitor is already dropped in middle lane as Snitch. He's not even winning this fight against Ruiz. Ruiz has forced out a stasis in bot lane. This is just going to end. Gamelord are going to rush it down and take game 1 of this series against RICS.
I actually just can't believe what we just watched. RICS were doing this by the books. They had the first dragon, the second dragon, the third dragon went a little awry, but it was there. They had the comp that was supposed to deal with it, and they just made some critical errors in engages 2 times in a row. And Hester and Zefter, they isolated Snitch. They isolated the only person that could really rip through the Darius and the Garen, and they killed him off quickly. 2 uncharacteristic errors in teamfight execution. I have gone pixelated like crazy right now. But the two teamfight errors were just uncharacteristic from RICS, and it was just great killer instinct from Zefter and the Gragas. We mentioned it in the draft. He's the one that's got to do it. He's the only person that counts when it comes to killing off the Vayne, and it happened.
Yeah, it happened. It happened. And as you fix your camera, I think we have to go back to. I mean, it's kind of correct to grab the side lanes, right? Like in competitive, you always want to make sure that you're pushing your side lanes back out. You can't really afford to allow the enemy to have a side wave pushing in their favor when you're ahead. And it just meant in those 2 moments that RICS overstepping onto the enemy side of the jungle when you're showing in the side lane is such a mistake that shouldn't be made.
I want to highlight this. This is the play right here, right? Hester sets it up. Snitch is a little bit overextended, but watch the killer instinct of Zefter. That barrel. Now look at Snitch. He's in the middle of the team. Darius and Garen can actually do something, and Ruiz and Redemption is able to pick him up. That was one of the moments for Hester and Zefter. That duo lockdown onto the Vayne. Now, realistically, Snitch shouldn't be getting caught by bubbles, but this is again afterwards. Watch Snitch here. Snitch has to get into the fight. Right now, he's getting zoned away by the Orianna, so he can't really do that as easily. But watch the flash body slam onto Snitch. Right, great bubble, but realistically, the flash body slam hit Snitch before the bubble came through. So this flash body slam from Zefter has already put Snitch in, made him irrelevant in this fight, and then Lonely Kid follows up because he's able to, because Snitch is in an awkward spot and he can't just play a traditional front to back. 2 team fights in a row where Zefter was like, boys, I got this. I'm isolating Vayne. I'm taking down Snitch. And that was the power of AP Gragas, but also just how much killer instinct Zefter had in these situations. Just go in and do it when it absolutely counted. And at this point, right, Lonely, I think RICS were just scrambling. After that, they were scrambling and they just got torn apart on the map. I want to give massive props to Lonely Kid as well. There was a question about this Random versus Lonely Kid matchup. I think Lonely Kid wiped the floor with Random like that game. I really think that he has shown his power in the Baron lane, and he's such a key and important part of Gamelord's roster right now.
Yeah, I mean, he outplayed, I would call it an outplay in that 1v2 in the early game, getting the Apprehend to deny the Haymaker, then kind of just opening things up throughout the rest of the game. Uncharacteristic game as well from Random, like kind of being so far pushed up. And normally I kind of attribute Random to being like this monster in team fights. And in this composition, it was just never really as prevalent, but this is the story of the game. This is the graph where you're like, all of that time through RICS being ahead that's in the blue, I was ready to tidy this game up and say, okay, well, we'll see what Gamelord can do in game number 2, because there's a Vayne on the side of RICS and they have a Ziggs and it's working really well. But man, that comeback, that comeback was insanely good. Like between, like as you said, Zeftis engages, smart itemization and choices by Hester on the way that he was playing the game to deny a lot of the Ziggs and deny Snitch, and then Lonely Kid as well, just like pushing that pressure through bottom lane, knowing he could take that fight, and then it gave him the ability to just end through bot.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you hit the nail on the head. Lots of great moments there, and that locket from Hester as well, especially. Really, you don't see it in Pro much anymore because people just thought, oh, the price got up, the value's not as much as Redemption, but oh my God, how influential was that in like so many fights?
I think we'll see it more. I think we'll see it more against this Ziggs now. Let's check out our play of the game. This is probably one of those moments that turned this back on its head, potentially in front of the Baron pit. Let's take a look at which fight it was. It's either the Baron pit or I think this is the more influential one, if I'm honest with you. This is where the seams started to come undone. You know, watch Zefter. Stasis, they're hanging around him. They want to kill him, so you can see it stalls the fight out. They take out Random and then suddenly Bubble. Boom, straight over with the brilliant barrel, and then they lock him up as well, take him down with Ruiz actually able to get into melee range of this Vayne. And once the Vayne's dead, there isn't any easy way to take out Darius. Look at how many bombs Darius was just soaking from Doom on the front line, because that is what Ziggs is generally quite weak to. Ziggs is not very good at killing tanks. So when you have like beefy bruisers and tanks like Garen on the front line, they just soak the damage against the Ziggs. That's why the Vayne actually was picked up in the first place, because it was necessary to actually get through that front line. But Zefter and Hester combined really tore that Vayne down, and two beautifully executed fights essentially sealed the game in the late game. It's so nice to see a draft where we're like, oh, well, we think the Vayne's going to undo this, but there's still some strength if Gamelord can play exactly this way. And then they hit the mid game and they do exactly what they need to kind of compensate against the counter draft. That was the game one we wanted from a finals. That was everything it needed to be. Let's hope for 5 of these total. Let's come back with game 2 in just a couple of minutes, and we'll see whether Gamelord can continue their momentum.
You ready?
Welcome back, everybody, to the WREC Europe Grand Finals. We are in Game 2 now, and we've done the old caster switcheroo. You'll be seeing the entire broadcast team throughout today, as Gamelord is joining me for Game 2. That game between Gamelord and Ryuh, Game 1, what's your immediate thoughts coming out of that?
It's been crazy. Like watching this as a viewer and not as a caster was like, what's going on? What's happening? All the turnarounds, all this comeback Gamelord pulled off. I definitely want to see more of that today.
Yeah, I mean, if we have any more games that are that big on a comeback, I think I'm going to lose my mind this entire time. As I said, we're bringing more of our broadcast team in throughout the day, and that means it's time to check out Hell's Devil and see what he's got for his key points. Oh, actually, we're going to see Rick's memeing first. That's a perfect thing to do. As I mean, this is definitely how Rick's feel coming out of Game 1. They thought they were totally in the lead. I thought they were as well. But yeah, apparently the room is burning.
Ouch. I mean,
yes.
Sometimes you need to burn in order to, be reborn from the ashes. So hopefully that's what Rick's will do, and we'll get a best of 5 series with 5 games, maybe, potentially, please.
Maybe it's a sign that we'll see Brand out of Rick's. Now we're ready for Hells to give us his thoughts on Game 1 and what could change going into Game 2.
Thank you very much, Stress. And yeah, I got you guys some key points. So even though Gamelord won, Ryuh actually had an amazing draft. They had the proper picks to execute their draft. And throughout the early mid-game, Ryuh did great snowballing, right? Considering their composition, they had the late-game composition. They were snowballing the game very effectively by taking the Rift Herald, pushing mid lane, pushing side towers, and they got the first 3 dragons as well. So the snowballing was really amazing from Ryuh. But then after that, we saw what happened, right? Heste, incredible player. And honestly, right now, if I could add to it, I want to add Zefta to it as well, because I actually had a quick talk with Excandro afterwards. Zefta and Heste, really, they always caught Snitch on the vein. They always caught him. Like, whenever the fight started, they caught him, they killed him, and they won the fight. So even though Ryuh had the seemingly better draft, Gamelord was actually able to execute their draft and their plan perfectly every single time. So even though Ryuh had the better picks, Gamelord had the better execution. So let's see if Ryuh can get back into the next game and have the proper execution of drafts as well. So back to Stress and Carmeline to get into the next game.
Yeah, I'm totally ready to just get into the next game. That's the thing about these best of 5s. I love that we can just run game into game into game. So I think Ziggs is probably not going to make it through again, even though Ryuh's lost. Ryuh's are on blue side again. That's what they've opted for. I don't know that the Ziggs is going to make it through again.
Neither, because when I was watching it, it was like every 2 seconds, Mega Inferno Bomb, Mega Inferno Bomb, Mega Inferno Bomb. So at this point, I think it is safe to say that if Ziggs makes it, I think someone is making a mistake here. And I don't want to say it's going to be Gamelord, because their draft last game wasn't amazing. But I mean, like, really, like, at this point, should be happening. But I don't know.
Yeah, I think the interesting thing is, like, the Locket did a decent amount of work to help Gamelord eat through it. But I think the early game, the lead that Ryuh had from that Ziggs was so much that they should have closed the game. That really was a game that should have been over with the scaling they had. We're into draft for our second game between Ryuh and Gamelord. It's going to be Rakan banned away. That means Gamelord likely to take the Olaf off the board here as well. Last game they banned Olaf, they banned Fiora. I can't remember who the third ban was, but I'll go and check my notes after this. But Rakan taken away nonetheless.
Why? I mean, I know why, but it hurts kind of, seeing him out. Cork is always going to be taken out. We've seen him a lot yesterday. Today, of course, his appearances, well, he hasn't appeared yet because in the first game he wasn't played. But I was having high expectations. They seem to be taking things really great. Like Galio, Camille, Fiora, goodbye. All of you are out of the game.
Exactly the same draft, so that would likely be Gragas, Orianna to come through here on the next rotation. which, I mean, I'm not surprised to see it. I think that from Gamelord's side, they're like, well, we just need to shore up our early game a little bit, and then we know we can come back anyway in the late game. They're actually going to over-prioritize the Darius. I kind of like this because this leaves Rix now finding a matchup into that Darius top lane. It was Gamelord picking Darius in their third position. They can assume that the Orianna will still be available in third position right now because Rix are unlikely to pick Ori here when it comes to already having Ziggs.
I agree with you in this one. However, do we want to see the same draft as in the previous game? I don't. I mean, well, okay. We're changing things a little bit. No, we're not. I mean, fresh again.
I don't think we'll get the same draft because I think we'll see a Vayne ban. Now that we know that Rix play it, I think for Gamelord, they'll be breathing a sigh of relief that, okay, the Vayne didn't destroy us because Rix made some mistakes. So, yeah, we're going to see pretty much the same draft. And I think from Rix's perspective, it makes sense. And from Gamelord's perspective, it also makes sense. I think now we see the Orianna and Gamelord ban Vayne, and we see where we go next.
Jarvan, no Jarvan in this game, right? Please.
Possibly not, no.
Can we not get Jarvan, please? Can we get anything else? Literally anything else with Jarvan. I'll take a team with jungle for Jarvan again. Thank you. Well, Orianna, as you predicted, making it full Gamelord once again. Seems like we might have the same draft as in the last game, but at least for them. But okay, there's no need to panic right now, because we have some bans to go through. Here's the Jags. Okay.
And then I think ban 5 is going to be Vayne, potentially, at least. It did undo them. Rick's going to hold their fourth ban as well with the Zed. I think Rix's last ban was the Alistair away from Hester, so we'll see what Gamelord do. Oh, Gamelord actually stick with the Riven ban. We might actually be running the entire draft back, which is not the first time it happens, but it's rare and always fun when we see it.
I did, but for what? For what? Like, should we just play the BOD, the bird, again, where you and Alexander were casting, just to see how these guys...
No, I want to see what happens in this game. We want to see what changes. The Nami's here as well, so the swap up. We know that means that Zefta is likely still on the Gragas. There's the opportunity for Ruiz to be taking it, but what that does is that doesn't reveal the Garen mid lane that it was last time. So now the Vayne is a lot less secure of a choice. You don't know the matchup that you're running into. So that puts Rix in a position. Do you take a jungle matchup? Do you look for something like a Kha'Zix, or do you go still for the Jarvan? Do you opt towards the Nunu that we've had before? Do you go for Lee Sin? There's a lot of picks still available. It's going to be Kha'Zix. Okay, so they're going to go for extra damage. SE7's going to look to carry a little bit more. We do have one change so far on the 8th pick of the draft.
Finally, and this one actually I like it. In the last game we saw Gragas versus Jarvan. They didn't work out so well. I don't know if it was because of the champion or because as I said, and the flags are not landing them properly. But you know what? We've got Kha'Zix, and we're gonna complete this roster with Ahri. Finally, give me something different. Give me an assassin here in the mid lane. Give me an enchanter that will be able to deal all the damage, all that burst as well in the early minutes of the game. I'm really excited to see it because now you were talking about it. You've got the Garrett. You didn't know what you were going to be facing, but I think Ahri can be quite convincing against this champion.
Yeah, so Gamelord running exactly the same draft back. Not too surprised to see it, as I don't think the Ahri offers the same kind of ability to eat through the front line like a Darius and a Garen and a Gragas. I think Ahri definitely struggles there. What this will do is if Rix can get Snitch and SC7 on this Kha'Zix and Ahri to work together well with Clue, and get single picks, they can easily eat through one target at a time. I think the difficulty comes, though, is actually tidying up and ending fights. Like Kha'Zix is going to have to be the one that kind of carries a lot of the end of these fights, whereas that was Snitch in the last game. So interesting, different draft. I kind of feel like even though last game Rix had the better draft against this Gamelord composition, I actually quite like the Gamelord composition coming from this one. I actually think it has a better opportunity to deal with Rix in this game.
Honestly, as you would say, saying, I think WREC is more pick, kill oriented, and Gamelord is more teamfight oriented. And this is going to be really interesting because if yesterday we were seeing how two similar compositions will be able to fight against each other, and it was a matter of who will perform better. And today we're going to be seeing who is able to push their compositions, win conditions better in order to win this game. For WREC, it's vital to win the game. We saw yesterday a 2-0 that was turned into a comeback by Gamelord, so we know what they're capable of in case, this happens again. But they already won the first game. So for WREC, you really, really want to win this one because we don't know what the mental is like for them exactly. We know how some players might take things, but again, this is going to play an important role in here. And we've already started with some action here. SA7 being attacked, being seen as well, the jungle, already having quite a good vision from Gamelord from the very beginning.
And I think you got to do this as we see the fan vote come through. Gamelord, the most favored for now, which is a little bit of a surprise, but obviously after that game one, I think this is what you have to do against the Kazakhs in the jungle when you're playing Gragas, is like, you don't want to take the fight. If you're Gragas, you would like to just farm up past level 5, get your ultimate, and avoid basically fighting against a target when you're isolated. Kazakhs will eat through you then. Whereas I'd like to see SE7 trying to find Zefta in the jungle. I think that's when you can have a little bit of impact, because once Gragas has his ultimate and has a couple of items, he's really hard to actually make the kills stick on if he has anybody around him.
I think that's an interesting topic that definitely should be coming up more in these next few games, like what different junglers can do, what they're specializing in, as I was saying. But before that,
gank attempt from Zefta to the top lane. Random is already low. This time Haymaker does land. He hasn't put the damage down on to Lonely Kid. He was ticking, but it's not quite enough. First blood goes over once again to Gamelord.
Yeah, and the pity is that SA7 was quite close right here doing the scuttlecraft in the upside, in the upper side of the river, but he wasn't close enough in order to help his teammates. And this is gonna already be putting Gamelord in a little bit of a gold advantage. And not only that, but it's also giving them kind of the prior when it comes to the next objective in that lane. So we'll see how that works out once again. But for now, you can see how they're facing each other here in the mid lane, not leading anywhere. Spain, a little bit of a Spain, like it's always good. Spain.
I feel like Lonely Kid is a bit of a blind spot for Random. Like, this is 2 games in a row where Random has died early game. One suffer play that WREC were making game 1 as the Aqua Prison does land in bottom lane. This shouldn't result in a kill. Clue has his summoners available. But this game was Random kind of getting baited in. It looked like he was looking for the kill onto Lonely Kid, but this Darius has barrier. Like, the Ignite is not enough to eat through for Random, and it just feels very odd that Random is in these situations where he's dying early game. Everybody says Random is the best top laner in the league, and I think Lonely Kid is showing up huge in this series and really starting to fight for that title.
Do people say that? People really, there we go, the mega fan of. Do people really say that Random is best laner?
100%. Coming into this season, everybody's tier list was like, Random is on a different level to every top laner. He was like in a class of his own. Most people, players, and also some of our other co-casters were like, Random is absolutely the guy to beat in top lane and will dominate everybody. But Lonely Kid has, over time, I think, really started to challenge that. This time he's going to have to play around it, though. Barrier not quite available yet. Does get suplex back. It's going to be a tough ask for him to get out of that. Tries to use Decimate to get out. Barrier not quite there. Surely 1 second away for Lonely Kid. It's WREC and Random picking up a kill in the top lane to try and even up that top lane score.
I'm really interested in how this is going to play out, because they've got Zed and Fresh in the same team, and that means that you are going to have a quite interesting combo right there with the Flay, the Haymaker. So I just want to know how this will work out once they get together more time. But for now, what we're seeing right now is that the objectives are going to be spawning in quite a few seconds. Seems like Gamelord is kind of having their eyes on the Herald, kind of getting a little bit of vision around the area, which is something, again, very important, guys. Don't forget to vote in your games. This is going to win you the literal game, so take note of that. But both teams seem to be focusing more on this first dragon, which of course is useful, but of course lead to a potential team fight that might not be so positive for WREC right now. So let's see if they do try to push for it, because for now the dragon is going down in Gamelord's favor.
Yeah, Ryuh have got Snitch collapsing on the bottom side, but I don't think that they can get there in time. 1400 on it, throws the Mega Inferno Bomb out to try and close the gap. It's the Gamelord jungle has smote it down. That's going to be a kill going on to Clue, and Ryuh don't really find what they were looking for from that exchange. Dragon goes over to Gamelord.
Yeah, indeed, as I was saying, I don't think that teamfight will work so well. The hook from Thresh didn't arrive quite in time. Well, it was a missed hook if we are to talk about it. And yeah, this gives them the pressure in the bot lane here. But Lonely Kid also has quite a good advantage to defend the tower right now. He's in a position, in a place right now in the game where he's able to do this 1v1s without much trouble. As we also talked in the preview, Ahri isn't able to melt champions away like Vayne kind of does. So again, you're not worried if you're a Lonely Kid right now. You're not worried if you're a Redemption. You're not worried if you're a Ryuh. And Zefta is doing quite well as well. So I think it'll all turn down kind of into this cautionary tale where both teams will try to keep away from each other a little bit. In Ryuh's case, of course, you want to keep on picking kills here and there. But it seems like they've identified how difficult it is going to be for them to break through the front line of Gamelord.
Yeah, I mean, Snitch's one job in this game is to flank and try and get a charm onto Redemption and take him out of the team fight before he can ever really do much. All of the other targets are not particularly as useful. Like, even taking Hesta out, it can be done by an Ahri, but obviously, you know, it's a little bit less impactful than you would like. Whereas if Snitch can trade himself for Redemption, they still have Doom as that carry to eat through people. I think it's a tough one because I think SC7 is the one that has to kind of find the isolated targets, look at kills. But Lonely Kid, I think, if he even gets a couple of items, it's going to be really tough to stop in this game. Like, it's hard to eat through that Darius who's healing up throughout that fight. Rift Herald will get started up for a moment by Gamelord, but now they drift back to the middle lane as both teams are kind of stalled out. Nobody committing to this Rift Herald yet after that first dragon taken. This is probably the longest time that we've had between a dragon and a Rift Herald take all season long. I feel like normally we bounce from one objective directly to the other, and it has not happened in this game around as Gamelord are the ones on the objective. That one hits 3. There's the charm going to land onto Hester, and the flay is enough to set up Doom for the first kill for Ryuh, but Ryuh's now trying to get away from the situation. Won't be enough to get Clue out as Rift Herald down to 300 health as Lonely Kid is going to get caught as that Rift Herald resets, bounces all the way back up in health, and it's Zefta once again on this Gragas, having exactly the impact they need. That's a great charm onto Ruiz, but it's not quite enough. Snitch gets flashed on by Zefta, and he is monstrous in this series. Gamelord backed themselves away. They got the Rift Herald. They got a bunch of kills as well.
I think the viral role did a quite good job in that, even though Zefta had to flash away. But again, if we look at this team fight once again, the charm, I think, was the detonating factor, the Mega Inferno Bomb to keep the enemies at bay. And if you look at the upper zone, you can also look at Darius right there with the Haymaker onto Lonely Kid, leaving him quite low on life, allowing his team to get the kill quite easily. Random has to flash away, and this is all just leading to them having to stop kind of the team fight. And when they try to approach again, you can see it very clearly how they have to just go away, otherwise they are within Ahri's range. That's something that you really want to do.
Looks like I was going to say Rift Herald was used, but it was not, as Zefta still has it in his inventory. That's Tower First Blood going down on the bottom lane. I believe it was first tower going over to Gamelord in the way that the indicators propped up, but that was the tiniest of margins that Ryuh lost out on that one. Apprehend doesn't connect for Lonely Kid. That'll back them away from the tower, and we're right into a dragon spawn setup as Redemption has been found in the middle lane. There's the Mega Inferno Bomb right before the objective. That's huge, but it was traded for the flash of Redemption, and that's an even bigger cooldown going into a fight.
Yeah, totally. So again, this is really important. Ryuh is not having his ultimate up right now. But from Ryuh's side, not SC7, not Snitch, not Doom, they didn't have their ultimates up for this teamfight that is going on right now.
Tidal wave into the flay though as Ruiz was pulled back in. Gamelord are taking the dragon on the bottom side, and Redemption without that flash is going to get taken out. Big suplex is going to deal damage to Gamelord, but they're able to convert the kills in their favor. It's stolen away by Zefta as SC7 and Zefta were having a smite fight against the dragon on the bottom side here. SC7 drops incredibly low, but Gamelord, they know they've already got the objective. They can already back themselves out and reset from this fight. Gamelord a much better early game than in game one.
The pity here is that Redemption didn't get to use his ultimate, so I mean, it's still there for when he responds, which is right now. And Gamelord is in a position where they can chase right now to get the kill onto SE7 if they want to, but again, they didn't have the ultimates just now, so they're in a kind of vulnerable position in comparison. And there goes a Herald stress.
Yeah, Herald going to get cracked in the middle lane, going to try and break through this Ziggs. If they can use that Mega Inferno Bomb, it is available. Surprisingly short cooldown on this. He's trying to get close enough so that the cast time is low enough it can't be flashed. It's one of those ones that because it has a travel time, there's a sweet spot with being close enough for it to arrive without being telegraphed. The flash in from Ryuh. He's going to go for it, gets the ultimate off, but it doesn't pick up the kill. There's a shield coming through. The turret does finally go down. This Lonely Kid doesn't get the execute reset on this, and actually he's going to get dropped as he's moving through. But 2 members of REC's already dead. They have traded it for Lonely Kid, but with that tower going down, REC's are on the back foot.
Ooh, interesting what we saw right now. Like, this play was really cool. Starting with a tidal wave by them, you can see the box up that from REC's side trying to, you know, cage, as the name says, the enemy team for Gamelord has still not been able to get close enough, and also Snitch having to run away. This is complicating the tasks for REC's.gg. The Aqua Prison doesn't quite land. It's a little bit of a skirmish for both of them. They don't get as many kills. It's not as effective. Both teams have to retreat really low on life. And I don't know about you, Stress, but I'm seeing, again, as you said, I'm liking what Gamelord's doing in this early mid-game, but I want to see more. Like, if you want to win the game, you need to do more in order to win it. Because right now it's a push and pull.
I think Gamelord have got a really good composition for fighting the later this game goes. We saw them turn around game 1, and that was against a better scaling team that had a lead. This is the kind of momentum, in my mind, that Gamelord are really ramping up for a game 2 win to put REC's on match point here. Like, Gamelord, this comp has a great strength in these fights and the way that they're being taken. 4,000 health still on the Rift Herald as REC's are trying to close in. Snitch doesn't really have a flank position as Clue flash play into it as he actually used the Protobell to start it. Zepta's got the Rift Herald and they can't quite get the first kill of this as SE7 had to back away. Big suplex, maybe what Random needed. The Haymaker is going to eat through Gamelord. Shockwave is going to catch Doom out, and Doom now in trouble. Doesn't have his flash available, but it's Snitch on the sidelines, puts damage down. SE7 has healed up. Looks like he got the honey fruit from the top. Charm lands, and now SE7, he misses the leap. He doesn't have the vision he needs to clean up this fight, and Hester and Lonely Kid just need to not be isolated. They can't allow SE7 to take them out individually, but Snitch is there. Charm isn't going to land. That's going to be the end of this fight, surely, as Gamelord, they got Rift Herald, but it was a back and forth fight. Gamelord lost 3 members in there.
I think if there's something to be said about this team fight and to highlight, it's how SA7 is constantly putting like the one complicating the life for Gamelord. Like, you can see them right now. He's gonna go in a second. He will go. The team fight starts. He stays a little bit in the back lines. You know, he cannot go quite in. He flashes away, and then this just makes things difficult for Gamelord because there goes Random again with the ultimate, and you can see how this just snowballs in REC's favor. Clue here doing a quite good job by dragging the enemy away, and there you go. SA7 once again back in the Rift, willing to pick kills if necessary. So I think this is gonna be making this life very difficult for Gamelord again.
Yeah, and SC7 just healed up. He didn't even take the honey fruit. Snitch is gonna land a charm, gonna hold Zepta in place and remove the jungler from this as Doom's Mega Inferno Bomb completes. But look at what they've traded for it. There's so much damage coming out from Gamelord that even without their jungler, they will be in a position to contest this. Dragon Random gets taken out by Lonely Kid's execution, and SE7 had to recall. He can't get into this fight. It would be a one-way trip, as he could have been the one with Smite. Aqua Prison lands over the wall, and it's everything Gamelord need. They take a 3rd dragon of the game, and now we'll turn towards the rest of the Rift. Do they go for Baron here? It's 10 seconds on Zepta, as Doom is the one that just died. Still 25 seconds left.
Exactly. I think they've got time to do it. SA7, as you said, is the only one roaming around as well as Fresh. Oh, there
Luis
we
has found him. All he needs to do is put damage onto SE7 and force him back, and that'll at least open a window. Hester's here, hides so that SE7 comes around the corner, and Gamelord, they're pushing bot lane in the meantime. Snitch lands a charm, will pick up the kill. A little bit sloppy from Gamelord overall. but it's peeling Ryx across the map.
I didn't quite like this play, I have to say. I felt like, as you said, it was a little bit unfulfilling here. But you can see how Lonely Kid, for example, right now is in the lower side jungle, perhaps playing something for the Elder, Infernal Elder, which I think is going to be, really valuable by teams. But in the meantime, it's all about this mid lane turret. It's all about getting whatever you can do here with this herald going on as well. This herald is not going to be able to do much, but it's going to be distracting Ryx for a little bit, a little teeny tiny bit, in order for Gamelord to flank Ryx and be able to do something onto them.
I think it was just about to expire on the timing by the looks of it, and
well,
they just had to drop it down as
Gamelord
can't get anything from it. As they're going to try and push down mid at least a little to try and get vision control. Random and Clue are stuck with members of Gamelord around them, but you can always use those bombs from Doom to just poke and prod around the jungle, see who's there. Snitch just pushed that bottom wave, and that's going to push towards the lower inner tower. Snitch forces the flash out from Redemption, and we saw what happened in the last fight, that Redemption didn't have his safety available. Sefta gets hooked, but it's not going to be anything more than that. It's quite hard for the Ziggs to eat through Ocean Drake and Mountain Drake, and then the Locket as well on top of it. This is a good ward out from Ryx. Like, this ward by the wall generally hasn't been swept so much by Gamelord, and it's allowing Ryx to just know that they haven't started the Baron yet.
Yeah, it's a really good one. I also want to touch upon a little bit of detemization, how we're starting to see the Styrax, at least in the hands of, I think it was as a 7 with the shield and the heal. It's going to be quite useful. And if he wasn't healing enough, there we go. Another healing item there for him. Forza got quite a few Luden's Tempest with the AH, ability haste, and AP that it provides. You can bet that the magic penetration in this game and the items against it are gonna be just flying all across the rift. But what I'm interested in seeing right now as well is a little bit on how they're gonna take it, because the objectives on the rift, they don't want to risk it just now. Gamelord is prepared for naughty fight.
Charm has landed onto Lonely Kid, a little damage up front, and most of the aggression is going towards the tower right now. Rick's got a few hundred damage down on it, but that's what they're trying to break. It's rare for you to see a game where a Ziggs has lost his mid tower and hasn't secured the enemy tower at the same time. That's an apprehend going on to SE7, but Lonely Kid actually is the one to lose a lot of the damage onto his health, and Gamelord, they've done a good job of defending mid tower. That's the Mega Inferno Bomb from Doom. That's just a terrible situation for Gamelord for Ryx to be in. Ryx have just chosen to fight now. They hit nobody with that Mega Inferno Bomb, and Gamelord looks like they want to try and capitalize from it, as Ryuh is desperate to get into the fight, losing damage on the back end, and this has been somewhat well played on the second half of the fight from Ryx. If they can continue to get the health bars lower and lower, maybe they can force Gamelord into a position where they can't take an objective. Bouncing Bomb comes through. I wonder whether that was a misclick from Doom, because that Mega Inferno Bomb was just thrown out with nothing. Were they just trying to check the bush or something? He can do that with a Bouncing Bomb.
Maybe, I don't know, I was quite surprised as well. Another thing that I'm realizing right now is that from Gamelord, also something that is making their lives really difficult is how for Darius you have to be close up. For Ryuh it's the same, and that's what's causing him to even, despite him being a frontliner, he's having to absorb so much damage. So in the end, he lasts for about 2 seconds being alive in the rift, and then he dies. Then you've got Redemption, who might be the only one who's able to fight from afar, because for the Gragas, okay, can't do this.
This isn't going fast enough, and there's the explosive cast. SE7 gets blasted into oblivion, and 50 seconds on his death timer means that surely that's Gamelord taking the Elder Drake. They're going to peel off for a moment. 6,000 health on it, no smite available for Ryx, and now can they get the fight to go? Perfect tidal wave is going to deny Clue the entry into the fight. Set with a Mega Inferno Bomb that's gone out early. The dragon is not low enough to be stolen as they're trying to get it. Who is it that gets it? It's actually Redemption that gets the confirm on the dragon. Double kill for Lonely Kid. It is all Gamelord all the way through this game. 6,000 gold in the lead with the Elder Dragon. That's a 4 Dragon Elder total, and they are going to be able to push through for a few more towers before that they can look to take Baron and maybe end this game.
Random being the only one live right now for WREC.GG. That point here ready for Gamelord to end the game
They might just end here, actually.
Yeah.
Like, SC7's the only one coming up. There's still 20 seconds left as Random is the only member of WREC. We'll see whether he can do anything. Suplexes Lonely Kid back away from the beginning of this one. And SC7, they can't put damage down onto Ruiz. Ruiz is going to try and end this one as SC7 drops as fast as he respawns. And that's it. We're going to go game 3, match point. Gamelord 2-0 up off the same draft back to back.
I can't believe this. What? Okay, so we were all betting on Gamelord to win this series, but right now, of course, I regret doing that. But also, looking at this fight, looking at this kind of initiations, Gamelord had really complicated moments right here, but things seem to turn around. But this one was very important for them to win. The Herald has been again another stone in the shoe. They've had some questionable moments, but overall stress, I think they've delivered a relatively consistent performance.
Yeah, I mean, Gamelord have looked great in the second half of the first game, and then this game on top of it. I mean, we were anticipating WREC to win this series. Like, all of the broadcast team predicted WREC, and now we're at a match point situation. I mean, Gamelord looks like that they've come so well out of yesterday's series, very prepared for this one situation against them that. Yeah, it's kind of a surprise. We had an interview with Snitch where Snitch said, what's the point in trying to counter Ziggs when Ziggs is so good? You may as well just play it. Well, here's how you counter Ziggs a little bit, because I feel like Hester has done everything that they need to. On top of this draft, like, Hester's constantly denying a lot of engages and denying the follow-up on the Ziggs ultimate, and then using his shields and heals to keep everybody safe. And the rest of Gamelord get a lot of room to perform. Like, Lonely Kid is having a fantastic series on this Darius, and I think it's really causing problems for WREC, those two picks.
Yes, he's shining all through this series, both yesterday, Friday. I think he's doing quite a good job in every single game he's playing, especially as Nami. So we can see it here. Just one dead, 15 assists, which I don't know about math, but I will bet it's about an 80% of the 85, 90% participation. Well, anyways, what I'm pointing at here is look also at the optimization, how complete it was by Gamelord mostly, and how WREC was struggling to gather all that gold in order to buy the items, particularly when it comes to Doom. So again, I feel like they fell short.
Yeah, it does kind of feel that way, doesn't it, from WREC? I'm hoping they can bounce back in the last game, or at least potentially last game, as it's a best of 5 between these two teams. Game 1 was a banger. Game 2 was a good game still from WREC and Gamelord, but I feel like Gamelord, this draft cannot be let through once again. I think the Darius has to go as one option. I think maybe you just let them play like the Corki or one of the other picks that you've been banning away, whether it's the Corki or the Galio, and see exactly where things go, because this game felt too comfortable for Gamelord. You can see the gold graph there as it panned out, but yeah, I mean, WREC, they were so far ahead in game 1, didn't really get into game 2 at all, and now they need to find something different heading towards the game 3. Let's check out our play of the game and see where this game tilted so heavily in favor of Gamelord.
Drums rolling, please. There we go. Okay, this one was amazing to watch, you know, from beginning to end. You can see once again SA7 keeping a little bit in the back line and wanting to get too close, but then you've got Ryuh, and it seemed like he was about to die because of how much damage he had been dealt, he had been absorbing, but this dragon went to them. They got so many kills on top of Ryuh at this point that there was no way they were coming back from that, at least in the next few minutes, and that's how they won the game.
Yeah, that pretty much sealed the deal for Gamelord, and WREC need to go to the drawing board, pull something a little different out. I want to see some different focus from WREC, because this draft is not working so much for them anymore now that Gamelord know exactly how to play it off. Very quick pivot in second draft of just not revealing their mid lane matchup, I think, has undone the ability of WREC to draft more towards the late game. It's 2-0 in favor of Gamelord. Only a reverse sweep will be enough for WREC to take the win and earn that first spot in Barcelona. Gamelord have got one step through the door there already. We'll see whether they can make it 3-0 when we come back.
Frozen over, stuck in time, out of breath in my mind. Is this how it will be when you promise this, you and me? Could it be us? Could it be us till forever? Till forever, forever us? Could it be us? Could it be us till forever? Till forever? Say you'll be mine. Say that you will, say that you will. Say you'll be mine. Say that you will, say that you will. You will always be the deepest part of me. Heavy hearts healed in time, memories stuck in mine. Never believed I'd start again, that our search was at its end. Could it be us? Could it be us till forever? Till forever? Say you'll be mine. Say that you will, say that you will. Say you'll be mine. Say that you will, say that you will. You'll always be a part of me. Till forever. You'll always be a part of me. Say you'll be mine. Say that you will, say that you will. Say that you will. Could it be us? Could it be us till forever? Till forever, forever us? Could it be?
Welcome to the official Riot Games Vibrant EMEA Championship.
Everybody round, everybody round here, know we get hype. Everybody round, 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 everybody round here, know we get hype.
Welcome back to the grand finals of Wild Rift EMEA Championships European Open bracket. It is match point, and I don't think we thought we were going to be in this position. Stuart, it's match point in favor of Gamelord in game 3. 2-0 already on this series, and after such a good start in game 1 from Ryuh, it looked like we were getting a close series, but Gamelord's game 2 was so good.
Oh, Gamelord's game 2 was perfect. I mean, there's so much to talk about from that second game. The exact same draft as well from Gamelord. Lonely Kid on this Darius has looked absolutely insane, and Marie's in the mid lane as well on this Garen. There's just so much to talk about, and I have to say, I have done my my Caster Curse tweet. You can see it there. There you go. My Caster Curse tweet is there. So if Ryuh's come back and if Ryuh's win, then you can thank me later, Ryuh.
I've been so focused, I've forgotten to tweet about anything during this series. I'm so hyped up between these two. I mean, there's so much that we can delve into. I think the draft has to change from Ryuh's. I know that for Ryuh's, Zig's first pick has been working for them for the longest time, but there are too many other matchups that are going. There you go. We don't need to just hold the phone up to the screen. We can get some screenshots actually going. I think Zig's first pick is too good. Too hampering for Ryuh's right now. It's too easily read by just pick a bunch of beefy boys and absorb the damage. Hester, we think of him as this engaged support, but now he's being cerebral and is well, we'll just pick disengage and I'll just shield you all and heal you all, and they'll never get enough damage to stick.
100%. I feel like the side selection might be pretty huge as well. Where do Ryuh's go? Do they stay on the blue side? They've chosen
blue.
Oh, they've chosen blue as well. Oh,
they
have. Wow. So they're still going to stay on the blue side. So they probably have to maybe switch up the bans or something, or maybe just give over the Ziggs to Gamelord potentially, because I feel like at the moment Gamelord are just saying, okay, you can pick these mages, you can pick Ziggs, you can pick Ahri. We're just going to pick a really beefy front line. You have the Garen, you have the Darius, you even have Zephyr as well, which even though he's building 4 AP, he does get some few resistances as well from his second ability. And there's just no way that they can, Ryuh can even break through that front line. And then you have Redemption, who's been someone that we really haven't spoken about, but he's kind of been the shining light as well in the back line, giving them shields, giving all the movement speed, dealing all the damage as well. And we could be seeing a complete 3-0 wipe by Gamelord.
We could. It is actually a viable outcome from here where we're looking at it. We'll see whether they can come back. Let's head over to Xscoundrel for his key points heading into potentially the last game of the series.
Thank you so much, Stress. Yes, we are going to start off with Garen is a problem. Not only is Darius a problem, but Garen is providing a pseudo-tanky front line, and that's impossible for the Ziggs to cut through. I think the guys talked about it a lot. There needs to be a shift in priority in terms of the draft phase. Like, Garen is just impossible to kill. The fact that you can build Garen Black Cleaver plus Sterak's Gauge, and he is not only tanky, but can also chunk you from like 1/3 of your HP to nothing with Demacian Justice is pretty nutty. So Garen feels a bit of a problem. It also means that Ruiz doesn't need to perform like some sort of mechanical god. You can just give him Garen and he can press a single button on his screen and have an impact in the game. I also think that Zefta and the solo laners are outperforming right now. I think Zefta on this Gragas has been nutty. I think he's making SC7 look almost weak in comparison. And I think the solo laners in general, especially Lonely Kid, are really, really performing well for Gamelord right now. And I think that also then leads us on to that final point, which is a little bit tied to the rest, Ziggs rethink. It clearly has a lot of priority for Gamelord, but there is an answer, and there has been an answer. Sorry for Ryuh, but there has been an answer from Gamelord for 2 games in a row now, and I think that is now an issue. Is it time to say ban Ziggs, move on to something else, or even just let Ziggs over and think about your own options into it? Ryuh needs to change something, and it starts with the draft phase.
And that's exactly where we're going. Thank you very much, Xscoundrel. Like, let's get towards our third draft of the series. So we've talked a lot about Ziggs. I think let's look at what options can happen if we swap away from the Ziggs. Like, where do Ryuh go? Because I think one of the picks that is really viable would be taking the Gragas first, because Zefta is a monster on this pick in this series so far. Like, he, on a pick that typically doesn't dominate the jungle, is having a free reign throughout this entire series. Like, his objective control is great. His disengage, his engage, splitting up fights, the way he's playing it is really hard to deal with. There's so many strong points for Gamelord that I'm like, what do you break with your first pick?
I feel like Xscoundrel kind of brought up there. If you ban the Ziggs away, you open up one of the other picks that you've kind of banned on the side of Ryuh.
Yeah.
Maybe the Galio, maybe the Olaf as well, and these other bans that have been coming through from Ryuh. But they're going to stay on the blue side, which is quite interesting. So they still want that first pick priority. They still do ban away the Rakan. That's still not going to go over to the hands of Heste, a champion that we've seen yesterday as well is a shining light for Gamelord.
I think of all of the picks, Rakan's the one that I would keep on the ban list. I think Galio, we saw a rough game from Gamelord yesterday on the Galio, so I don't think it's as cut and dry as like, you let this pick through, you lose. So I think Galio is probably the one they'll drop. Corki, it remains banned here. This is the one that I'm not so sure on either. Gamelord, that game where they had Corki and Ziggs did not look so great for them yesterday. I know Redemption is a strong Corki player, so it's absolutely a valid ban. I think we're game 3 in a draft now, and we need to see something change. Galio maintains, please do not just take the Ziggs blindly unless you have something else different built around it.
That's the only thing I can think of, is that Ryuh have something else that they want to first pick. Maybe is that Gragas, as you mentioned, take that away Darius, from Zefta. Maybe Darius as well, because Lonely Kids look so strong. There you go. There's the adaptation. There's the Gragas. Taking that away from Zefta. I think he's just performed above and beyond SE7, who's looked really, really shaky this series so far. The first game on the job, and he didn't really do too well. The second game as well. There's a high priority still on the Darius, getting Lonely Kid on that comfort pick. Now, do you take away the Ziggs from Ryuh? Do you kind of fall into that bait? Instead, they stick with the Orianna, which is really, really interesting. So now Ryuh can have both Ziggs and Gragas in their, in their pile if they really want to.
But I don't know whether you still need to play Ziggs here. Like, yes, Ziggs is good. Like, don't get me wrong. I think Ziggs has been a really good pick in the meta right now and absolutely is S tier. But Gamelord have shown they can play around it. Gamelord have shown they know how to at least play to neutralize a lot of that Ziggs, and without without that strength. I like the Garen pickup.
I was about to mention, do you just take away the Garen? Because the Garen is such a big problem at the moment, and Xscoundrel's already mentioned it. You take away the Garen away from Ryuh, you take away that beefy front line. Now, what do you do on the side of Gamelord? Do you go, wow, you just go Vayne instead? I love these drafts. It's just like, you pick Garen, we pick Vayne. You pick Ziggs, we pick Garen. And now we're in a situation where, you know, you have Garen, you have Gragas, now you have Vayne, which is going to leave probably, is it going to be Orianna mid? Is it going to be Vayne mid? We've already seen it from Snitch as well. It's like, wow.
Does this now force out different bans? Like, does this force Rix to ban at least Lulu and potentially Yuumi as well?
True.
Because, like, now the problem was for Rix, they didn't want to pick their support because I think they'd already had Thresh at that point, so they couldn't look at doing like the Vayne Lulu composition. Or does it mean Rix still stay with what they were banning before in the second phase, where they were banning Hester's engaged champions? Alistar was banned away. There it goes. So they're going to take that one off the board as well. But that does open the opportunity for Gamelord to last pick an Enchanter support, depending on if they go jungle on 4, and then they can fit their bot lane how they want to.
Yeah, exactly. They can have that flex way. They can just go for a jungler on R4, and then R5 they can decide what support they want to, depending on how Rix's lineup does. But now this last ban from Rix is not going to be Zed. I was just looking down actually at my notes because I'm keeping track of it. It's not going to be the Zed anymore because we already have either mid lane Vayne or mid lane Orianna. It's going to be one of the two. So do you just ban away the Nami maybe? It could potentially be an option, and it is. Yeah, they're just going to ban away the Nami. So again, more focused bans on Heste. I think he's been so strong on all of these supports, and it's getting banned away. But now, do you actually pick up Thresh now on the side of Gamelord? Because Thresh has not been picked by Rix, and it's kind of actually the only role support that's left, unless you're going for something like a Lulu, like a Yuumi instead. There's so many possibilities in this draft still.
That would be my guess, is that you pick jungle here. Rix will pick up Thresh at this point. We'll talk about Zephyrs Lee Sin in a moment. I think Rix pick up Thresh in this rotation with, of course, their jungle or top lane matchup. Set is available if they want it, and then Gamelord get to read it. It's like, do you want the Lulu? Do you want something like a Yuumi, which will provide crowd control as well, or do you opt towards like the engaged champions? Depends on whether they're putting that Leona. I was going to say Leona as an engaged champion. There's the jungle coming through of the Vi to lock down Vayne. Very different draft in this game, and this is a little bit more towards what Viv were playing against Gamelord yesterday.
I'm not too sure if is this the first time we've seen SC7's Vi? I think we've seen Zephyr pick it up before, but I feel like it's the first time we've seen a Vi, so he's not going to be playing one of them, you know, flashy champions that we've seen from him, like Lee Sin, like Kha'Zix, like Jarvan. He's just like, okay, I know that maybe I'm not performing up to my standards, so let's just pick the Vi, let's get the lockdown, and a Braum coming through instead of that Thresh. So sometimes Braum can have bad matchups against some enchanters, normally Nami, but that's already banned away. But now this is the interesting part. What support is Heste going to pick? Is it going to be Yuumi? Is it going to be Lulu? Is it going to be another engage support? We'll have to wait and find out. There's only 10 seconds less stress, and
we're going to get it figured out. There's the disengage of that Braum to be able to stop it. It is the Lulu as expected. One of those picks that really just ramps Vayne's damage and survivability up through the rest of the game. Like, as soon as you get that shield on Vayne in the late game and start popping the ultimate, it's so much harder to kill Vayne than we saw from Rix, where Snitch, he was in fights and doing damage, but as soon as one piece of crowd control landed, suddenly Vayne was under a lot of threat. With a Lulu, that's hardly as easy to do, and she's even got Orianna shields as well.
The thing is now is that Rix has kind of, I guess, fallen into the Vayne trap in a way, because they're B4 and B5, their 4th and 5th pick are both kind of tanks as well. Vayne Vi is like a kind of off tank, but Braum is also a tank. Vayne does well into pretty much all of these champions. The only, obviously, champion she's going to struggle against is a Ziggs, but if you can tumble around, if you can jump on top of Doom, if Redemption can jump on, or Breeze, it might even be on Vayne mid, but if they can get on top of Doom, if they can, pretty much delete Doom, then I feel like the rest of the fight is run. It's just to kill Doom, kill the Ziggs. As long as you kill the Ziggs, then the rest of the team fight is won by Gamelord. And honestly, this draft phase just blew wide open. That's one of the craziest drafts I've seen. I love how teams are baiting each other. It's like, oh, you're going to pick Garen now because we can pick Ziggs. Oh, you pick Garen now we're going to pick Vayne instead. It's so fun to watch, and sometimes the draft is more fun than the game itself.
And the funny thing on this one is we came in a draft 1, and I saw one of your messages in our chat as the show is running that you were saying like it's a 5-head draft from Rix being able to utilize that Vayne distance. Well, now like Gamelord have five-headed Ryx into picking the picks that they had to face in game number 1. So it's going to be Redemption on the Vayne. This is a very different setup to the first game, as it's going to be dual lane Vayne against the Orianna mid for Ryuh. A little bit more traditional in the way that you'd look at a League of Legends draft, but Wild Rift, of course, we have seen this swap up, and that's as close as it's going to get. As Doom gets dropped low, now gets tumbled on and puts more damage down, as Clue wasn't in the lane, and this is one of the things is Doom can expect to get harassed as soon as Clue shows elsewhere on the map.
I was about to say that Redemption and Heste are going to struggle in this lane because Doom just outranges, can just poke down Vayne, but Clue for some reason was roaming. I think he just put a ward in the river, but when you do that at the start and you just leave Doom alone level 1, what are they thinking? Like, you're just giving Vayne and Lulu a free start to lane phase, and this is where Vayne Lulu is really, really weak. You don't have the range, you don't have the damage in the early game, and now you can see at the moment that Clue's still roaming and Doom's all by himself, which means that Redemption and Heste, they could just farm up and they could just play passive. They got really nothing to worry about.
Well, this is how Clue has been playing out the early game. We've seen it a lot from Heste as well. I think we'll see it less in this game because of the way that Lulu is not so useful on the roams. SE7 showing does not get the vision in the bush at first, drops the ward very smartly, knowing that Zefta could be there. So the plant reveals enough with that warding combination to know that they can't go aggressive. And this is the first game so far that Random hasn't died to Lonely Kid. We'll see whether that keeps going, but like Lonely Kid has walked into lane and been like, you're the one top of the tier lists. Okay, we'll see how that goes. And Lonely Kid has won out 1v1 a number of times.
I think Lonely Kid has been the player that's been like, okay, you know, we've seen your tier list, Shurnik Scoundrel. We've seen Random at the top. I'm about to prove you wrong. But to be honest, we've been speaking so much about the dual lane. We didn't actually pick up that Random is now on the Gragas instead. So it's not the Gragas jungle. It's going to be Random, which he's gone for Electrocute. So he might be building kind of full AP in a way. It will probably be a little bit tankier with like Rod of Ages potentially. But you'll probably still see the Death Cap. So it won't be as one-shot potential as maybe Zefta's Gragas was what you've seen in previous games, because he still wants to get a little bit tanky so he doesn't get, died by the Darius each time as well. So
I wonder if that's to one-shot the Vayne. Like, because the thing is, if Lulu's shields and heals go off, like this Garen won't kill the Vayne, the Gragas won't pop the Vayne like instantly. So you have to make that damage go on before Lulu can ever save her, right? Like you don't have the consistent damage over time from this composition to fight Vayne in long, prolonged fights.
They just want to burst the Vayne. That's it. You have the Vi ulti, you have the Garen ulti, you have the Gragas ulti on top of that. Their task, I mean, I feel like it's the same with both comps. Gamelord just wants to burst down Doom. Everyone on the side of Ryx just wants to burst down Redemption. It's just to do with these two dual lane carries, which I think is a perfect story and a perfect setup, I think, for this entire series. I feel like the meta at the moment has been so much, there's been so much talk about this dual lane. There's been so much about these AP carries, about ADCs and the current meta, and especially Doom changing from jungle back down to the duo lane, and Redemption as well, who had a bit of a shaky start to 2021, but coming into 2022 has definitely looked a lot more comfortable. And now it's going to be, the late game carries now in the duo lane to see which one will come out on top. But as you can see, Random's gone for the Rod of Ages, no surprise. He just wants to be a little bit tankier, get more combat stats so he can be a little bit fine in the Baron lane. It's a little bit of a different build. Interesting enough, Ruiz has gone for Archangel Staff first in the mid lane. You normally see Luna's Echo as the first item that you normally go for Manifold Band in the runes, just so you're not struggling a lot on mana. But this makes me think that Gamelord are not really looking for the early game fight, because Luna's Echo normally has better stats and Archangels normally allows you just quickly scale into the mid and late game. So maybe Gamelord are not looking for this dragon fight. Saying that, they are trying to take this Scuttle Crab and they are pushing themselves around this dragon.
Can I ask a question on that before we get into this fight? Is that perhaps an indicator that Ruiz's build might be completely different and might opt towards a protect the Vayne kind of composition?
Maybe,
we've seen it on Orianna in PC, where you go way more towards utility and based around the shields. Is that something that Archangels might hint towards?
It could be in a way. I still feel like he's still going to build like Ludens afterwards. He's still going to go for the same sort of build. I think he just I think Ryuh just wants to quickly get the shielding for himself as soon as possible because there's a lot of one-shot potential on the side of Ryx. We already mentioned it. The Vi ultimate in, Garen ultimate, Gragas ultimate. So maybe he's just thinking, okay, we're not going to be fighting as much in the early game because to be fair, on the side of Gamelord, you got Lulu, you got Vayne, you got Orianna. You do not want to fight in the early game because your champions are not really that strong when it comes to that first dragon. So again, I think it's just an adaptation in build to kind of realize the game state that they're in and realize the team comp that he has as well. So he's like, okay, I'm just gonna go Archangels first. I'm gonna spam all my abilities and try and clear this mid wave, and then I could get that Ceres Embrace as soon as possible. So I can get the shield and I can just keep spamming my abilities.
Yeah, we'll track his itemization as we go through the game. Recall's coming out, so it'll give us a little idea of the next step in his build. As we have seen a little bit of a swap up, at least from the side of Ryx, moving their duo lane to the middle lane, of course, as is standard. I think giving this Vayne as much on the side lane as you can is going to be helpful. Vayne's the one that you're kind of like trying to get as much gold onto throughout this game as is pretty standard, and no real rush yet on the objectives. When was the last time we have been in a game at 6 minutes where both Dragon and Rift Herald are still up?
Again, I think this is Gamelord's game plan because there's so much for the late game. Lulu, Vayne, Orianna, but now we're saying that they're going to start this dragon. But look, they don't want to contest it. They know they can't team fight. I really, really like this from Gamelord because they know that they can't. They probably won't win a team fight in the early game. And now it's Ryx. This is what I wanted to see from Ryx. Ryx are the ones that are going to start this dragon, and now we're going to see who comes out on top.
Yeah, Ryx have to force it a little bit. Otherwise, Gamelord are not going to get drawn away. At least as long as they can take the objectives, maybe they can make it work for themselves. 2,000 health on the Dragon. Mega Inferno Bomb is going to eat through Gamelord. That's a great start to this fight as Random has got Lonely Kid locked in his sights, and that should be the first kill of the game. Going over to SE7 as they're trying to kite back down onto the Dragon. As the first kill for Redemption is going to get this Vayne going, and it's actually Zefta that has taken the Dragon for Gamelord, and Gamelord managed to come away with a kill and the Dragon from that. It looked like a very tense scenario.
Perfect from Gamelord. They got the dragon. They lost one person for it. They got the infernal dragon as well. So we spoke about the late game already for Gamelord. That late game has just gotten even scarier now for Ryx because you're going to get in bonus AD for the Vayne, for the Orianna, for this Lulu as well. Actually, teleport.
Holy wow, that's early for that Enchantress. Hester drops low. In comes the fight as Redemption's actually the one to pick up the kill. They're going to eat through Ryx. This has gone horribly wrong for Ryx as the execution doesn't pick it up onto Snitch, but they've done it. They've cleaned up. That's an ace off the teleport. Gamelord in game 3 are going to make their way closer and closer to Barcelona. They get Rift Herald. They stole the Drake. They've destroyed Ryx early on.
Ryx, what are you doing? What is going on? The Gamelord they came back from their base. Ryx didn't reset as well. Doom had to buy teleport because they really wanted to try and get this Rift Herald because they know they already lost the dragon. So we're like, oh, we're going to trade in objectives. Now you've lost the Rift Herald, you lost the dragon, you lost 2 towers. This is 7,000 gold lead stress, and it's early on. And we're going to look back at this replay. Look, Clue's basically 1 HP. SC7's 1 HP. He's going in by himself. Random gets caught afterwards as well. Look at Redemption over the wall. Flashes onto Doom. Doom, you're not going to be able to do anything this game. Condemn it against the wall as well. And Gamelord are absolutely running over this game. I feel like Ryx they tried to get a consolation prize.
It's actually, they're trying to back away from this as Snitch. And the Mega Inferno Bomb on top of it, there's the first kill going over to Snitch as they can try and do it. Ryx are going to try and steady themselves in this matchup, forced out of stasis from Redemption. They'll back away, and Ryx, maybe that's enough to slow him down at least a little bit. But this game has started to get blown wide open by Gamelord.
Oh my, Gamelord they know they're in the right hands now, and Lonely Kid is going on to Doom.
It's 1 versus 2 as Lonely Kid is trying to get the execute and does. And is that enough to spell the end of Ryx's upper bracket run? Snitch is bleeding. It doesn't matter as that Zefta Sonic waving through for another kill. 8 kills to 2. We are so far ahead from Gamelord right now. They have got a commanding lead in this game.
Ryx are completely falling apart. This is not the Ryx that we saw against Gamelord. I spoke about it a little bit at the start of the show. I was saying that Gamelord sometimes with the early rotations can get these early advantages, but Ryx, they're just trying to keep forcing. Look, they're forcing fights over and over again, and it's just not working out for them.
There's still 4 members of Gamelord here. Like, this is a fight Ryx are taking to try and defend their tower, but it's 4 versus 3, and you're not in the advantage position here, Ryx. You are down a hell of a lot of gold right now, and they are continuing to try and fight. They are desperate to try and get back in this game. They are just going to scrap and try and make it work. They put the damage down. Have they got the first kill onto Zefter? They have. In comes Doom's Mega Inferno Bomb, and that's Lonely Kid going to fall again. And are they somehow going to defy the odds? They've dropped low from this fight. Can they keep Redemption live on the side from Gamelord? And how the hell have Ricks started to turn this? Doom lands the bouncing bomb. The shield is going to keep Redemption for a moment. He's going to tumble away. Does get the silver balls to proc on the third one. Gets a double kill before he drops. And it's Ricks tidying up the end of the fight. How in God's name have Ricks managed to hold on in this fight? 8,000 gold down. They ace Gamelord in game 3, and maybe we're not done yet.
What is this fiesta? Zefter here trying to catch out random. The Lulu ultimate went on top as well, but again, it's him that this time that gets caught out. The ultimate from Doom didn't really do too much, but look at Redemption. He gets caught by the Gragas barrel. He gets caught by the explosive cast, and the Reese is just on the backline. He can't really do too much. The overextension here from Gamelord is just... They tried to take the tower. They couldn't take the tower. Ricks came back from the base, and I feel like it's just a complete opposite of what Ricks were doing. Ricks were like, okay, we're going to try and overextend. We're going to try and take the Rift Herald. This time it was Gamelord the ones that were actually overextended with low health bars. And wow, I mean, we're still at a 4,000 gold lead, and I feel like Gamelord is still in the driver's seat this game. But what
Ricks
is going on? Oh.
Like, Ricks have started the Dragon is they know that they, from that last fight, at least Gamelord have to be thinking, okay, can we really take it? As Doom looked to recall out there. Got to look down the summoner spells. There's no flash available as Random does get caught for a moment, but the explosive cask is going to deny everything. Gamelord may very well just look to take the Dragon for themselves. They need to buy time for Random to get healthy. He's taken the Honey Fruit, doesn't have his ultimate, doesn't have his flash. Ricks are going to back themselves away. They're going to start the Rift Herald, though, at the same time. Gamelord will be able to make it. Doom using that TP to advantage. He spent money on it earlier. May as well try and use it now as Lonely Kid going to get denied by the minefield. In goes SC7. Hex Inferno goes through. They can't quite get the kill onto Hester. And maybe it is enough to start this fight for Gamelord as Doom is very low. Zefter's going to pick off the kill. And that's exactly what Gamelord needed to shut Ricks out of this fight around Rift Herald. It's gone back in favor of Gamelord, and that has to be the killing blow from here. Ricks, they fought for just a moment longer than we were expecting, but now Gamelord are going to run them down. SC7 forced back away, and Ricks just have not been able to find themselves any kind of lead in this game. Rift Herald will eat through their objectives.
Zefter jumping in onto the backline, kills off Doom as well, and wow, this is a completely different Gamelord that we have seen from before. This is the Gamelord that we were kind of expecting, really, coming into the Gamelord versus Ricks before. This is not the same Gamelord that we saw lose 2 games against Viv yesterday. The momentum of winning 3 games in a row. We're going to be seeing this replay back. They tried to catch out Heste, but with the ultimate still there, and Redemption's just in the backline. He's completely fine. Look at Zefter in the backline, jumps onto Clue, lands a Q onto Doom on the backline, and he is just running around Ricks like they're absolutely nothing. And again, I kind of have to bring up the point where this jungle matchup, Zefter versus SE7. SE7 has really not had an, I don't know, is there a disconnect potentially?
I hope Redemption has not disconnected.
Okay.
We'll get an update on that. He is now moving.
Yeah,
I have to update something just from the last team fight. I thought that Gamelord had taken Rift Herald at the end of the fight. It actually despawned during the fight, so that's maybe a slight amount of good fortune in Ricks' favor that Rift Herald wasn't pushed through to a Nexus. They would have, or an inhibitor from that. I think that would have been a really tough situation for Ricks to stabilize from. So important that objective did not go over to Gamelord. And Ricks, this is like fingertips situation, holding on by the tiniest of margins here, because this gold lead should be insurmountable. Like at this point of the game, 2 dragons down with a Vayne that is scaling 4, 1, and 5. If Redemption plays this out well and gets himself some extra lifesteal and towards the Guardian Angel, there should be almost no way with a Lulu and an Orianna that Ricks can turn this game back around.
There should have been. I mean, we said that after the first game, though. To be fair, I mean, we said that after the first game where there was a Vayne that was really, really far ahead, and in the end it was.
Fight. SC7, Assault and Battery goes through onto Lonely Kid, forces the flash over. That overhead was exactly what they needed with the Shockwave and Ricks. This is a 5 versus 3 in Gamelord. I'm gonna say, take it, bring on the fight. This Lonely Kid is gonna get dropped before the execution goes off. Doom has died on the backside to Zefter as Ricks. They're trying to back themselves away. They've lost SC7. It's only Snitch and it's only Clue as Baron is available. available. Zefta has been on fire this series, and he is absolutely helping WREC get destroyed by Gamelord.
Zefta showing that his Lee Sin, he doesn't pick it too much, but when he picks it, he can absolutely dominate. And it was WREC that were trying to start the team fight, and they've been starting fights over and over again, but they didn't realize that Lonely Kid still have flash. You see a flash over the wall, the shockwave into the apprehend as well, and Lonely Kid survived for such a long time. And you can see Zefta on the flank, right into the back line, onto Doom, and there's nothing that Doom could do against Zefta. Just Zefta being able to jump, flash everything onto Doom, and there's nothing you could do. And that's going to be Baron now over to the side of Gamelord. And look at this, 10,000 gold lead now for Gamelord. Look at the gold leads as well. 2,000 gold lead mid, 1,000 gold lead in the Baron lane, 4,000 gold lead in the jungle. Zefta is running away with this game.
Gamelord came into this weekend, won game 1 against WREC, lost the next 2 games, found themselves down 0-2 against Viv yesterday, and are now 2-0 with Baron buff, with a fed composition that can play through the late game, and SE7 is trying to push out the side lane. Gamelord have done everything they can to fight back from the brink of being eliminated in yesterday's series against Viv, and there has been no stopping them ever since. This is the Gamelord we told you about coming into game 1. It took them a little while to get there, but they are looking to close this game. Mega Inferno Bomb will clear the wave in mid lane, but it's not quite enough to hold on. There's super minions pushing through, or Baron minions, I should say, through the bottom side. Super minions now through mid lane is going to be enough to ramp this up. Gamelord, they have to be careful that they aren't dropping too low off this. Of course, WREC will have the defender's advantage of being able to heal up, and that means Gamelord will be happy with what they've done. They can't really force this bot lane turret down without another wave of minions. They will get it quickly and then back away to the dragon and reset.
Yeah, they're going to reset for this dragon, this ocean dragon that's coming up, or maybe they might stay. They're really, really low, though, to be honest. This is maybe a bit of an overstep by Gamelord, but they have to defend the base. WREC have to defend the base. You can see both Clue and Stitch both going back to base instead, and wow. Gamelord, they've broken the mid inhibitor. I think the bot lane inhibitor was like 100 HP. I don't know if observers can go and check that. I think it's like 100 HP. So maybe that will be like something that they can look at later on at trying to get, but that's one inhibitor and potentially even 2 inhibitors now as well with the Elder Dragon. Gamelord, they have 3 dragons. Baron's coming up probably very soon as well. That second Baron that could potentially end this game. And I'll be totally honest with you, Stress. I do not see a way WREC coming back into this game. Gamelord having like crazy leads.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. We've crested 10k, but game 1 we were in the reverse situation. Doom just picked up his Rabadon's Death Cap. He invested early gold into that teleport, and that has been eating into his damage ever since, and it did not pay off. For WREC, there is one more fight left in the tank. If they do not kill Redemption and do not stop Gamelord from getting this next Baron of the game, it is all but over. Zefta, he's had an amazing series, but he is the one potentially caught out. Winter's Bite is going to force out the kick as Zefta gets caught by the Glacial Fissure. That's Zefta going to get his GA.
Look at Baron lane,
but his top lane, Baron lane, Gamelord are looking to try and end as all of the damage comes down onto Zefta. There's a teleport coming in from Doom. Is that the overextension that Gamelord had to do for WREC to get back into this? The damage has gone down, the kill onto Snitch, and WREC have been able to resettle themselves, but they lose the inhibitor in the top side. Bot lane will be fallen with a gust of wind will push that over if the minions ever get there, and WREC may very well be 3 inhibitors down, but the important pick on Zefta means no Baron available for Gamelord.
Yeah, they're not going to be able to take the Baron. Zefta is still dead for 25 seconds, but also Snitch is dead as well, so it's a 4 versus 4 situation. Do Gamelord look to just go over to the bot lane, just to attack it? Because when 3 inhibitors are down, it's so hard to come back on. When you're having multiple Baron up there. Look, you can see Redemption now. He's moving. He's actually going to go to the mid lane. You said, what is Redemption doing here? I thought he was going to go down to the dual lane. He might actually get caught as well. SC7 and Glue are there.
Yeah, there's the Assault and Battery, forces the stasis, but it's as good as crowd control. Shockwave comes through. The rest of the team is there as Ruiz is trying to desperately save him. The shields, everything is keeping Redemption alive. He's still here from being caught, and it's forced WREC into a fight that they cannot afford to take. The Guardian Angel from SE7 as Lonely Kid rips into the backline. Clue drops the apprehend as Gamelord are going to apprehend this game from WREC. It's all Gamelord. Gamelord have only lost Zefta, and with 3 members of WREC down, Gamelord bounced back from being 0-2 down yesterday to advance themselves to the finals in Barcelona and prove that Gamelord are lords of the European Open bracket.
Oh my god, not one of us predicted this. No one would have expected.
Blame Stuart. It's a curse.
I will happily say that no one ever thought that coming into this series, Gamelord would wipe WREC 3-0. I don't think there was a single person that believed this was possible. But Gamelord, from being 0-2 down yesterday to Viv, has won 5 games in a row, and they will be our first team going to Barcelona. Wow, what an insane series, and what a great series as well by Gamelord. I mean, looking over this third game as well, we said coming into the draft was so interesting. It was kind of a bait by Gamelord. They're like, okay, you're going to pick the Garen now, we're going to pick the Vayne instead, and Redemption showing that he can still pop off on these AD carries. We've seen him play Ziggs, we've seen him play Orianna, we've seen him play these AP mages, but he can still bring out the Vayne. And just across the board, Zefta had an absolute insane game on Lee Sin with his early game advantages. Lonely Kid, 3 games on Darius as well, has proven why he can be one of the best Baron laners. Random coming into this, being one of the best Baron laners in EU. Lonely Kid's just like, yeah, that's not even a question, you know. I'm going to be up there as one of the best. And Ryuh as well, picking up the Orianna in this third game, picking Garen as well in the other 2 games. Just overall, what an insane series by Gamelord. I have to give big props to them.
Yeah, Gamelord stepping up both through draft and also individually. I feel like there's multiple members of Gamelord that peaked to the level that we have expectations of, but didn't always see throughout the split. I feel like they also kind of exposed a lack of depth today from WREC. We've seen WREC play other compositions, and we saw WREC on Friday adapt and kind of beat what Gamelord were offering. But today, WREC felt very reluctant to move away from one playstyle until this third game, and by then it was too late, and they played exactly into what WREC had already shown Gamelord how to play against in game 1. If WREC hadn't made mistakes in game 1, I am fully convinced that was a 1 game.
100%. I'd have to agree with you. That first game was pretty much won by WREC. I mean, they had an early game Vayne that was really far ahead. They still had Doom as well on Ziggs, who was also very far ahead. But it was just Gamelord. It was Heste and Zefta in that first game. The Bubbles, the Gragas in the first game that was just catching Snitch off guard. And you can see here in the end the stats as well. The Lulu Vayne, the classic and everyone's curse in solo queue. What everyone hates in solo queue, Redemption and Heste are like, okay, we're going to bring this into a solo queue game. And I felt like this game was kind of a solo queue game fiesta, to be fair. It was just it was just so wild. Just teleports in the early game. Doom as well. I mean, you can see Doom doing the most damage on his team, but I really wanted to see Doom on an AD carry. I mean, 3 games with Ziggs. They really highly prioritized the Ziggs. And I feel like coming into this as well, Gamelord, like you said, have kind of adapted, really. I feel like their momentum for coming in from the Viv game, they've also adapted as well. And they're just like, okay, you can take the Ziggs. We don't care about the Ziggs at all. We've come up with something to counter the Ziggs. And they did that in games 1 and 2. They said, okay, we're going to pick the Garen. We're going to pick Gragas. We're going to pick the Darius as well. And there's nothing that WREC could do about it. And even in third game, they still allowed them to pick the Ziggs. But instead, Redemption and Heste are just like, okay, we're just going to go Vayne Lulu. We're against the Garen. We're against these tanks that we're just going to completely stomp you. And Zefta as well, Lee said. Just, wow. What an incredible game.
Incredible series overall from Zefta. And you know, I yesterday and across the weekend have kind of been saying in my mind that Heste's the best support, and predominantly that comes from his engage play on the support tanks that we see start fights. Well, he just played 3 games of utility and did as good at showing he has control over these team fights, of being exactly where he needs with the heals and shields. Like, yes, Redemption died, I think, in that one fight, but in every other one, all of his targets were prioritized correctly in the way of making sure that they absorbed the damage from Ziggs and got the carries through the game. And like, Heste is in my mind, like the S tier support in Europe right now. That's no disrespect to anybody else, but I mean, like, Heste, I think, is on another level compared to what we're seeing. He buys so much time for Gamelord, whether it's engage or utility. He can do it both.
I think the amount of bans that he gets as well.
Yeah,
he gets 4
crazy.
or 5 bans every single time. He's just like, I don't care. You can ban as many champions as you want against me. I could pick Nami. I could pick Lulu. I can play as many supports as I can. And it just shows that he, like you said, I think I totally agree with you. I think he's definitely the best support in EU right now. But they're going to be our first team with to Barcelona as well. It's crazy.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm sure somebody who will be excited to go play in Barcelona will be Ryuh, who I believe is with a Scoundrel for an interview following their 3-0 win.
Hi, Ruiz. First of all, massive congratulations. That is an absolutely huge win. Firstly, I've got to ask, back-to-back finals for you now, live finals for you. You also seem to be like Rix's kryptonite, being on both Queso and on Gamelord, being the man that's managed to take them down. How are you feeling making it this far in 2 successive European competitions now?
To be honest, as personal, I feel so excited and like very happy to for my performance as my performance teams. And yeah, like we did it. I'm so excited. I even I don't have voice. I will have it now, but later we won't have it because I was dealing so hard, like I did in the first Origin series. And yeah, we played so good as a team. We yesterday we had some struggles in the 5 games, but after we lose the 0-2, we talked as a family. We fixed the problem that we have, and we said about okay, we'll have everything we have it as our hands, and we knew about if we play as a family, we play together, we play as a team, we are better than them, and we show it to them. And yeah, I feel so excited, and yeah, let's go to the Barcelona, and I hope I can win again, the WREC and the region.
Yeah, I mean, look, you absolutely deserved it, Ryuh. And I think I wanted to touch on the strategy that you came in with today. It was clear you had a draft in mind. It's clear you read Rix as well, almost like you knew the Ziggs was coming every time on blue side and you had something prepared. Is that something that you specifically had in the back pocket for this series versus Rix?
Yeah, I think the first series when we play against them, when we lose 2-1, I think we learned from their picks, what they play, how they play, and we really analyze that. Kirk is our coach; he really did a good job in that terms. And yeah, we knew about they know how to play, they know to play Ziggs, and that type is really annoying, but also we know about Red is really good to Oriana, and Oriana into Ziggs is really playable. And also, yeah, I think the K was the first 2 games they got in picks because they really go full all in, and I can be frontline for my team. And yeah, basically we calculate, we just fix the problem we had in the another final. And yeah, we just read good the draft, read good the games. Yeah, we just did it.
I think I want to touch on that finally. There was clearly a massive upswing in momentum from Friday. Obviously, even in the series yesterday versus Viv, where you kind of came back and did a big reverse sweep. What was it that you specifically worked on? What is it that you just said, okay, let's fix this, and now we're the best team in Europe? What actually was the main thing that you guys kind of brought together for this series?
I think we're a family, and as a family we have some problems, but as a family we know how to fix that problems. And yeah, after 5 games was really mental. I mean, it was really hard for us. Also we have a really hard discussion in the boys. We said, okay, guys, let's go, wake up. We need to do everything as we have. We're not giving our 100%. Because we really hard worked this last month for go to the Barcelona. And yeah, finally, I think in this final we played our every player the 100%, and I'm proud of my family, Gamelord. And yeah, I just love them, and we just fix the mental as talking and watch review and talking, basically that as a family.
I mean, that's good. And I actually really love that you constantly talk about it being family to you, because I clearly, from when I saw you in Origin series, even with Queso, the team that you're on, you kind of knit them together as if they are family. And that's so lovely to see. And I think it's obviously, you're really passionate about any team that you're on as well. So I think it's awesome to see that passion come through in the way that you played the game. Massive congrats, man. You won the WREC Open Bracket. We're going to see you in Barcelona, Ruiz. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. You and Gamelord deserve it.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Scoundrel. Bye. See you in Barcelona.
That has got to feel great for Ruiz. I mean, you know, the story of being the EU representative last year, I think the ending of that perhaps was not what Queso were wanting, and then of course like the departure and now being on Gamelord. We've talked Gamelord up a lot throughout the split, and I think this 3-game series was the Gamelord that we've been hyping up for months now, like, because they were a bit shaky a few weeks ago. There were times where I was like, ooh, that they don't look like the Gamelord that we've come to expect, but they peaked at exactly the right time in finals. Let's take a look at the play of the game and look exactly how their peak paid off, because Gamelord looking exceptionally strong in this series.
Yeah, we're going to be seeing the play of the game here, and it is the catch as well. Yeah, the stasis on top of that. You see Ruiz flashing on top, Heste as well. Just everyone just keep a redemption live. Look at the shields and everything as well. Yeah, they just don't care at all. They're all completely over the wall, and this was just an overextend, which I felt like Ricks just did throughout this entire game. They just wanted to fight. They kept on overextending over and over again, and then Lonely Kid on the back line as well. I mean, I can talk all day about all of these 5 players, and I think Ruiz as well, having just heard him as well just a second ago. I feel like ever since Ruiz has come onto this Gamelord lineup, I feel like Gamelord are just a complete team now. No disrespect to the previous mid laner, but Ruiz as well. I mean, you see in the interview there, he's so passionate about the game. He's so passionate about his teammates and everything as well. And he's had an incredible performance as well. And like you said, even though Gamelord did look a little bit shaky as well in some series, you know, against Viv and also lost against Rix, they showed today that they are the best in Europe.
They absolutely did. I think Ryuh put it really well to begin the day. Is like for a team like Gamelord, the established players have been there and they have been performing, but I think mixing some of these newer talents as well with like Lonely Kid coming in, at least from the way we've seen them play, like they've started to really pay off in the individual skill as well as teamwork. I've always felt like the teamwork has been there for Gamelord, but the individual skill sometimes has just been like, oh, you're not performing at the absolute top tier. And Ruiz said it in the interview today. Every single player showed up exactly how they needed it to. This is such a hard series to pick an MVP from. We struggled. We had multiple people, and it literally is like right down until the end for who it could be. But I think there was only one eventually. Thinking about the series as a whole, Zefter had an incredibly dominant jungle performance. Like his KDA doesn't show it, but his objective control, finding the right team fights, his Gragas was great, and then his Lee Sin in last game was exactly what we've come to expect from Zefter's Lee Sin.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we've known Zefter as one of the best junglers in Europe, picking up junglers like the Lee Sin, but it just shows that he can play champions like Gragas as well. I think both the first and the second game, being able to catch out Snitch on the Vayne, multiple body slams as well, and like you mentioned in the third and final game as well, picking out, I feel like his signature pick that we know from Zefter being the Lee Sin as well, and showing that even though Lee Sin's not really in the meta too much, just shows that he can still perform on champions that he's not played for a long time in competitive. And I think a worthy MVP winner, but big props to, you know, Lonely Kid in the barrel lane as well, and also Heste. I think both of them could have also got MVP as well. Heste with the Nami bubbles as well, and the Lulu. Lonely Kid playing 3 games as Darius against Random, who's considered one of the best barrel laners in Europe. Just, it was really hard, but Zefter in the end, just a little bit over the edge for MVP.
We could talk about the series forever, I think. Even though it's only 3 games, we were hoping for more. We've got Xscoundrel joining us to wrap up at the end of this series from today. Xscoundrel, I mean, you chatted with Ruiz. Always nice to hear Ruiz's uplifting personality. You've had the joy of casting him last year in the Origin series. Like, do you think this lineup for Ruiz has a higher skill ceiling than Queso? I know that's a putting you on the spot question here, but what's your thoughts on that?
Yes. I mean, I don't even need to answer that question, you know, even think about it. I think Queso's top side of the map was really good, but there was obviously questions that was always thrown towards Queso's bottom side of the map last year. I think this time round, you've got Redemption, who's hitting a high. He has more flexibility than Ibu, in my opinion. And Hester, as you mentioned it, best support in EU, no doubt in my mind right now. That man is absolutely MVP support. So I think, you know, Ruiz has slotted into a team where, you know, Zefter and Lonely Kid are arguably equal to the top side, or if not better, in terms of Lonely Kid, especially on the top side of the map to where, you know, he was previously in the bot lane is insane, especially Hester. So I think, you know, Ruiz is leveled up entirely in terms of the team that he's on right now. And I think, you know, you're looking at a Gamelord that Ryuh was right. You know, if Gamelord play at their best, they are without a doubt the best team in Europe, but the inconsistency is what matters. And I think you got an insight into that when we talked to Ruiz in the interview. Kind of got an insight that it's actually in their heads about how well they can play on the day. And when their mental's in the right place, they are playing beyond any other team in our competition. But that inconsistency is what they need to fix if they really want to shine at those big tournaments.
Totally agree with that. Stuart, any final thoughts on today's series?
Just congratulations to Gamelord. But obviously, it's not really the end of the road, really, for REC. You know, they can still make it to Barcelona as well, because we got the last chance qualifier, which will be happening very, very soon as well, which we got REC, we got Viv, we got so many teams that have come from the open qualifiers as well. So even though this is the end of the WREC, we got last chance qualified just around the corner. And I'm ready for more Wild Rift action. What a great tournament it's been.
Exactly that. So that is the end of the open bracket. It is Gamelord taking their first step towards our finals in Barcelona. Stay tuned throughout the week for broadcast announcements to do with the open bracket, as I should say, last chance qualifier, and exactly when we'll be broadcasting those. We'll be back with those games, which I can't wait to see who the other teams that are going to be there in Barcelona with us. But that is the open bracket done. Gamelord have done the unthinkable and 3-0'd their way past REC. Thank you very much for joining us all. And thank you to the rest of the broadcast team with Hells and Carmeline that have been joining us throughout the weekend. Thank you, Stuart. Thank you, Scanrel. And we will be back with the last chance qualifiers very soon.
Galileo.